Hello guys, welcome to Fiction Quest. So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto became the harem god of the three factions, and married Gabriel, Rias, and a fallen angel princess? If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. Worlds apart, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Konoha as Naruto Uzumaki stood atop the Hokage monument, gazing at the village he'd sworn to protect. 2 years had passed since the Fourth Great Ninja War, and peace had settled across the shinobi world. His orange and black jacket fluttered in the breeze as he closed his eyes, sensing the familiar chakra signatures of the villagers below. Still not used to the quiet, Kakashi's voice came from behind him. Naruto turned to face his former sensei, now the 6th Hokage. It's not that. Something feels off. I've been sensing strange energy fluctuations for weeks now. Kakashi's visible eye narrowed. Where? Northeast forest, beyond the old Uzumaki shrine ruins. Naruto pointed toward the distant treeline. It's not chakra, at least not any kind I've felt before. Kakashi considered this. The Anbu patrols haven't reported anything unusual. They wouldn't. Whatever this is. Naruto tapped his stomach, indicating the 9 tails sealed within him. Kurama feels it too. Kakashi nodded, knowing better than to dismiss Naruto's instincts. Investigate if you want, but be careful. We've earned this piece. I'd like to keep it. I'll just check it out. What's the worst that could happen? Naruto grinned. With you. Kakashi's eye crinkled with amusement. Dimensional rifts, alien invasions, angry gods. Naruto laughed as he stepped to the edge of the monument. I'll be back by dinner. He leapt off, chakra surging through his body as he bounded across the village rooftops in blurred motion. The strange energy called to him like a whisper just beyond hearing. Whatever it was, it felt important. The ruins of the Uzumaki shrine stood half concealed by ancient trees. Weathered stone tablets covered in faded sealing formulas. Naruto had visited once before, seeking connections to his mother's clan, but had found little more than crumbling remnants of a lost heritage. Today, however, the air itself seemed to pulse with strange energy. Naruto moved cautiously between moss-covered pillars, following the sensation. You feel it too, right? He whispered. Inside his mindscape, Kurama stirred. Yes, it's not chakra, not exactly. Something else, something old. At the center of the ruins, a small clearing opened to the sky. There, barely visible, the air shimmered like heat rising from summer stones. Naruto approached slowly, extending his senses. Some kind of barrier. No, Kurama growled. A tear, a wound between worlds. Naruto reached out his hand, fingers hovering inches from the distortion. The air crackled with energy, tiny arcs of light dancing across his skin. What happens if I... Naruto, wait, his fingers brushed the shimmering air. And the world exploded with light. The ground beneath him vanished. Naruto felt himself falling, tumbling through impossible space, colors and sensations washing over him in disorienting waves. He tried to form a Rasengan, to summon shadow clones, but his chakra swirled uselessly around him, unable to take form in this between space. Hold on to your chakra, Kurama roared. Don't let it disperse. Naruto concentrated, drawing his energy inward, wrapping it around his core like armor. The falling sensation intensified, then abruptly stopped as he crashed through another barrier and slammed into solid ground. Pain shot through his shoulder as he rolled across grass and came to a stop against a tree trunk. Groaning, he pushed himself up and took in his surroundings. He was in a forest clearing, but not the one he'd left. The trees were different. The air carried unfamiliar scents, and the sky was wrong. Purplish red, like perpetual sunset, with 2 moons visible despite the daylight. Where the hell am I? Naruto muttered, rubbing his shoulder. Another world, Kurama replied. Our chakra feels different here. Be careful. Naruto rose to his feet, testing his limbs. Nothing broken, but his chakra indeed felt strange, heavier, more potent, yet somehow harder to control. He formed a simple hand sign, and chakra blazed around him with twice the intensity he'd expected. Whoa! A sudden pulse of energy from the northeast caught his attention. Not chakra, but something similar, pure and bright. And it was approaching fast. Naruto took a defensive stance, ready for anything. What emerged from the trees, however, left him momentarily speechless. A woman with hair like spun gold and eyes of the clearest blue descended into the clearing, actual wings, 12 magnificent white wings, spreading from her back. She wore a white and gold dress that seemed to radiate its own light, and her expression was a mixture of curiosity and caution. "You're not from this realm," she said, her voice melodic yet commanding. "How did you breach the dimensional barrier?" Naruto kept his stance but relaxed slightly. Whatever she was, she hadn't attacked immediately, which was a good sign. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki from Konohagakure. I found some kind of tear, I guess, near a shrine in my world. Touched it, and now I'm here. Wherever here is." The winged woman studied him intently, her gaze lingering on his stomach where the seal contained Kurama. "You carry great power within you," she observed. "Yet it's neither angelic, demonic, nor fallen." She lowered herself to the ground, her wings folding behind her. "I am Gabriel, Seraph of Heaven." "Heaven?" Naruto blinked. "You're saying I'm in heaven?" A small smile touched Gabriel's lips. "Not exactly. You're in a border realm. A neutral territory between the domains of the three factions. I sensed the dimensional disturbance and came to investigate." "Three factions?" Naruto relaxed his stance completely, curiosity overcoming caution. Gabriel gestured to a fallen log. "Perhaps you should sit. This may take some explanation." As they sat, Gabriel explained about the world Naruto had stumbled into. "Oh, a reality where three supernatural factions had been locked in conflict for millennia. Angels from heaven, devils from the underworld, and the fallen angels who had been cast out of heaven. A great war had ravaged their world until an uneasy truce was established following the deaths of the biblical god and the original four great Satans. Currently we maintain a fragile peace," Gabriel concluded. "Which is why unusual energy signatures, like yours, warrant immediate investigation." Naruto processed this information, drawing parallels to his own world's conflicts. "So you're like the peacekeeping force?" "In a manner of speaking. I represent heaven's interests." Her expression turned more serious. "The question remains, how did you access our world? The dimensional barriers have been sealed for eons." "I don't know," Naruto admitted. "I just felt something strange and investigated. In my world, I'm what's called a Jinchuriki. I have a powerful being sealed inside me." "Don't tell her everything," Kurama warned. Gabriel's eyes widened slightly. "That explains the unusual energy I sense within you. Not quite demonic, yet immensely powerful." Naruto was about to respond when their energy signature flared in his senses, this one darker, heavier, approaching rapidly from the south. Gabriel tensed, rising to her feet. "Devils," she said quietly. They must have sensed the disturbance as well. The air shimmered with crimson light as a magic circle formed on the ground 20 feet away. From it emerged a young woman with flowing crimson hair and striking blue-green eyes, dressed in what appeared to be some kind of school uniform. Behind her, a silver-haired woman in a maid outfit stood with alert watchfulness. "Gabriel," the red-haired woman acknowledged with a slight nod before turning her attention to Naruto. "So this is the source of the dimensional anomaly. A human, Rias Grimori." Gabriel returned the nod. "This is Naruto Uzumaki. He's from another realm entirely." Rias approached, power radiating from her in dark waves that made Naruto's skin tingle. Not malevolent, but definitely not the pure light he sensed from Gabriel. "Another realm?" Rias questioned, circling Naruto with undisguised curiosity. "Not one of the known dimensions connected to ours." "How interesting." Her eyes narrowed. "And what exactly are you?" "You feel human, but something else lurks within you." Naruto met her gaze steadily. "Where I come from, I'm a shinobi, a ninja. And yeah, I've got something sealed inside me, but that's my business for now." Rias smiled, amusement dancing in her eyes. "Bold, aren't you? Do you know you're addressing Rias Grimori, heiress to the Grimori clan, one of the 72 pillars of the underworld?" "Should that mean something to me?" Naruto asked, genuinely confused. The silver-haired maid stepped forward. "My lady, perhaps we should report this to Lord Searsex. A dimensional breach is a serious matter." "In a moment, Graphia," Rias replied, her attention fixed on Naruto. I want to understand how a human, even one with sealed power, managed to traverse dimensional boundaries that have confounded even the most powerful devils. Gabriel moved closer to Naruto, her wings unfurling slightly. I believe that's precisely what we were discussing before you arrived. The tension between the angel and devil was palpable, centuries of ingrained O.P. position evident in their stances despite the truce. Naruto raised his hands. Look, I'm just trying to figure out what happened and how to get home. I didn't mean to cause any trouble between your factions. A distant rumble drew everyone's attention. The purplish sky darkened as clouds formed with unnatural speed, swirling into a vortex directly above where Naruto had arrived. That's not normal, is it? Naruto asked, already knowing the answer. No, Gabriel and Rias answered simultaneously, then glanced at each other in surprise. The swirling clouds pulsed with energy, and a beam of chaotic light shot down into the forest half a mile away. The impact shook the ground beneath their feet. What the hell was that? Naruto demanded. Graphia's expression tightened. The dimensional boundary is destabilizing. Your arrival may have weakened the barriers between worlds. Or something followed him through, Rias added grimly. Another impact, closer this time, sent birds scattering from the trees. The air grew heavy with ozone and something else, a malevolent energy that raised the hair on Naruto's arms. Whatever it is, it's not friendly, he said, moving into action. Which direction leads away from populated areas? Rias pointed east. There's nothing but wilderness for miles that way. Good. I'll draw it away while you two figure out how to close whatever's happening with that sky. Gabriel frowned. You don't know what you're facing. Doesn't matter, Naruto replied, already forming a shadow clone seal. I can handle myself. With a puff of smoke, 20 perfect copies of Naruto appeared, startling both Gabriel and Rias. Fan out and locate the threat, the original Naruto ordered. Standard reconnaissance formation. The clones nodded and scattered in different directions, leaping into the trees with practiced efficiency. Rias stared, momentarily forgetting her dignified demeanor. How did you? That's not devil magic or sorcery. Chakra, Naruto explained briefly. Now, are you coming or not? Because whatever that thing is, it's getting closer. As if to punctuate his words, a bestial roar echoed through the forest, followed by a crashing sound as trees were flattened by some massive force. Gabriel and Rias exchanged glances, centuries of conflict momentarily set aside in the face of a common threat. We'll accompany you, Gabriel decided. If this disturbance threatens the peace between factions, we must address it together. My lady, Grafia protested, my brother would expect me to investigate a threat in Grimori territory. Rias cut her off. Please inform him of the situation, but this requires my personal attention. Grafia hesitated, then nodded stiffly. As you wish. A magic circle formed beneath her, and she vanished in a flash of crimson light. Naruto felt a sudden rush of memories as one of his shadow clones dispersed, a mental image of a massive creature with scaled limbs and too many eyes crashing through the forest, absorbing energy from the air itself. Found it, he announced. This way. He took off running, leaving Gabriel and Rias momentarily surprised by his speed before they followed. Gabriel, taking to the air with graceful wing beats, Rias surrounded by a nimbus of crimson power that lifted her above the tree line. The creature stood 15 feet tall in a newly formed clearing of shattered trees. Its body was a nightmare amalgamation of scales, chitin, and pulsing flesh, with multiple limbs ending in claws or tentacles. 7 eyes of different sizes swiveled independently, tracking the remaining shadow clones that darted around it. What is that thing? Rias demanded as they observed from the edge of the destruction. I've never seen its like in heaven's bestiary, Gabriel replied, her face grim. It seems to be feeding on the boundary energies. Naruto studied the creature's movements as it lunged at one of his clones, dispelling it instantly. The memories flooded back, a sensation of burning cold at the moment of contact. It's not just feeding, he observed. It's trying to widen the tear between worlds. The creature suddenly went still, all 7 eyes swiveling to focus on their position. It let out a bone-rattling howl and charged, moving with shocking speed for its bulk. Scatter! Naruto shouted, leaping sideways as Rias and Gabriel took to the air. The creature skidded to a halt where they had been standing, its claws gouging deep furrows in the earth. It reared back, a central maw opening to reveal rows of crystalline teeth, and spat a stream of energy that nearly caught Gabriel's wing. "It's targeting you specifically," Rias called to Gabriel. "It seems to hate angelic energy." "Then let's give it something else to worry about," Naruto replied. He formed a familiar hand seal. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. This time, 100 clones popped into existence, surrounding the creature in a sea of orange and black. The beast's eyes darted frantically, trying to track the sudden multiplication of targets. "Now," Naruto commanded. The clones attacked in coordinated waves, using the Rasengan in tandem to strike from multiple angles. The creature howled in rage and pain as the spiraling chakra spheres tore into its hide, revealing pulsing energy beneath the wounds that quickly sealed themselves. "It regenerates," Gabriel observed, gathering light in her hands. "Allow me." She thrust her palms forward, and spears of holy light rained down on the creature. Where they struck, the flesh sizzled and blackened, regenerating much more slowly. Rias joined the assault, crimson-black energy forming around her hands. "Power of destruction," she called, releasing a wave of annihilating force that carved away a significant portion of the creature's mass. The beast screamed, a sound that seemed to come from multiple throats at once. It whirled with unexpected agility, tentacles extending to impossible length to sweep away dozens of Naruto's clones. "It's adapting to our attacks," Rias warned. Naruto nodded, already forming his next move. "Then we change tactics. Can you two hold it still for just 3 seconds? Gabriel and Rias glanced at each other, then nodded in unison. "On my count," Rias said, gathering more destructive energy. 3, 2, 1, now." She unleashed a focused beam that struck the creature's central mass, while Gabriel created chains of light that wrapped around its limbs. The beast thrashed and howled but was momentarily immobilized. Naruto had already begun. A clone helped him form a Rasengan, but he didn't stop there. Wind chakra merged with the spinning sphere, transforming it into something far more deadly, extending into 4 blade-like protrusions that whirled with cutting force. "Rasenshuriken," he called, hurling the jutsu directly at the creature's core. The wind-nature Rasengan struck with devastating precision, expanding on impact into a microscopically cutting vortex that shredded the creature at a cellular level. The beast's howls rose to an unbearable pitch, then abruptly ceased as the jutsu ran its course, leaving nothing but scattered particles that dissolved into the air. Silence fell over the devastated clearing. Gabriel and Rias stared at Naruto with new assessment in their eyes. "That was," Rias began. "Impressive," Gabriel finished. Naruto flexed his hand, wincing HTLY at the familiar strain of using the Rasenshuriken. "Thanks, but I don't think that's the end of our problems." He pointed upward, where the swirling vortex in the sky had grown larger despite the creature's destruction. "The dimensional tear is widening," Gabriel confirmed, her expression troubled. "Your arrival may have been just the beginning. Or a symptom of something larger," Rias added, her analytical mind working through possibilities. "We need to consult the archives. Both our factions have ancient records of dimensional phenomena." Naruto looked between them. "So we're working together on this." A moment of tension passed between the angel and devil before Gabriel spoke. "It seems we must. This threatens all our realms." "Agreed," Rias said reluctantly. "Though I must inform my brother, Searsex Lucifer, of these developments. And I must report to Michael," Gabriel added. Naruto nodded, understanding the political complexities despite being new to this world. "And what about me? I still need to find a way home, but I'm not going to leave if these rifts keep opening and spitting out monsters." Rias studied him thoughtfully. "You're an unexpected variable, Naruto Uzumaki. Your power is unlike anything in our world. That may prove valuable, or dangerous," Gabriel countered gently. "No offense intended," she added to Naruto with a small smile. "But power CTS attention in our world, not all of it welcome." "Story of my life," Naruto muttered. "Look, I just want to help fix whatever's happening and find my way back to Konoha. People are counting on me there." The sky rumbled again, the vortex pulsing with ominous energy. "First things first," Rias decided. "We need to stabilize this tear before more creatures come through. Gabriel, can heaven spare any support?" "I'll request a sealing team," Gabriel nodded. But what of him? She gestured to Naruto. He comes with me, Rias declared. The Grimoire estate has extensive libraries on dimensional phenomena. Plus, she added with a hint of competitiveness, I found him in devil territory. Actually, Gabriel corrected with serene firmness, this clearing falls within the neutral zone established by the Accords. Naruto sighed, seeing the beginnings of a territorial dispute. How about this? I'll go with Rias first since she mentioned having information about dimensional stuff, then connect with Gabriel after. That way I'm not playing favorites, and we all get what we need. The two women considered this compromise acceptable. Gabriel finally agreed. I shall arrange for representatives from heaven to meet us at the Grimoire estate tomorrow. This crisis supersedes our usual protocols. Rias nodded, though she didn't look entirely pleased with the arrangement. Very well, we should art before. A new energy signature interrupted her, dark and chaotic, approaching rapidly from above. All three looked up to see a figure descending through the vortex, black feathered wings spread wide against the turbulent sky. Fallen angels, Gabriel and Rias said simultaneously, tension returning to their postures. The figure landed at the edge of the clearing, a woman with long black hair and violet eyes. Dressed in revealing leather straps that barely preserved modesty. Her black wings, smaller in number than Gabriel's, folded behind her as she surveyed the scene with obvious interest. Well, she purred. Heaven and hell having a picnic together. How progressive. Her gaze settled on Naruto. And what have we here? The source of all this dimensional chaos, I presume. Rainer. Gabriel acknowledged with cool politeness. The Grigori sent you to investigate. Azazel was curious about the energy spike, Rainer replied, sauntering closer. Though he'll be far more interested in you. She circled Naruto, eyes gleaming with predatory fascination. Human, yet not quite. What delicious power you contain. Naruto maintained his composure, though something about the fallen angel's gaze made him uncomfortable. Not fear, but a sense that she was seeing through him to Kurama. We were just discussing how to address the dimensional tear, Rias interjected, stepping subtly between Naruto and Rainer. The Grimoire family will be hosting a summit tomorrow. Rainer raised an eyebrow. How generous of you, Grimoire. And I suppose you'll be keeping this interesting specimen under your roof until then. For security purposes, Rias confirmed with a tight smile. Rainer's eyes never left Naruto. Azazel will definitely want representation at this summit. Expect us tomorrow. She spread her wings, preparing to depart, but paused to address Naruto directly. Until then, human, I look forward to learning all about you. With a flap of her wings, she shot upward, disappearing into the swirling clouds. I don't trust her, Rias stated flatly once Rainer was gone. Nor I, Gabriel agreed. But the Grigori must be included if we're to address this properly. Naruto frowned, processing this new complication. So now there are 3 supernatural factions all interested in me in these rifts. Great. Welcome to our world, Rias said with a hint of sarcasm. Politics is just war by other means here. Gabriel sighed softly. Unfortunately accurate. We should depart before other complications arise. Rias nodded and extended her hand, a magic circle forming beneath her feet. Come, Naruto. The Grimoire estate awaits. Naruto looked to Gabriel, who nodded encouragingly. I shall see you tomorrow. Until then, be cautious with what you reveal. Knowledge is currency in our realm. Got it, Naruto replied, stepping onto Rias's magic circle. See you tomorrow. The circle brightened, and the forest clearing vanished in a flash of crimson light. The Grimoire estate materialized around them, a sprawling mansion that put even the Hokage residents to shame. Gothic architecture with sweeping arches and ornate stonework stretched in every direction, surrounded by manicured gardens lit by floating orbs of magical light. And the sky was a deep crimson, with no sun or moon visible. Welcome to the underworld, Rias announced, watching Naruto's reaction with amusement. More specifically, Grimoire territory. Naruto turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. This is hell, not what I expected. The underworld, Rias corrected. And this is just one region. My family controls this territory. Before Naruto could respond, the massive doors of the mansion swung open, and Graphia emerged, accompanied by a tall man with crimson hair similar to Rias's, dressed in ornate formal attire. "Brother," Rias greeted, bowing slightly. "I've brought our visitor as discussed." The man approached, power radiating from him in waves that dwarfed even Rias's impressive aura. Naruto immediately understood this was someone of immense importance. "Naruto Uzumaki," the man said, his voice surprisingly warm despite his imposing presence. "I am Seer's Lucifer, one of the 4 great Satans who govern Devil Society." He smiled. "And Rias's older brother." Naruto straightened, showing respect without subservience. "Nice to meet you. Sorry about, potentially destabilizing your dimensional boundaries." Seer's laughed, a genuine sound that eased some of the tension. "From what Graphia tells me, you've already helped address one consequence of that disturbance. Please, come inside, we have much to discuss." As they entered the mansion, Naruto couldn't help but marvel at the interior, crystal chandeliers floating without support, intricate murals that seemed to move when viewed from different angles, and devils of various ranks going about their business, all pausing to bow to Seer's and Rias. "So you're like the Hokage of devils?" Naruto asked as they walked. Seer's glanced at him with curiosity. "Hokage, the leader of my village," Naruto explained. "The strongest ninja who protects everyone." "Ah," Seer's nodded. "Then yes, that's an apt comparison. Though I share governance with 3 others. Each of us oversees different aspects of Devil Society." They entered a grand study lined with books from floor to ceiling on 3 walls. The 4th opening to a balcony overlooking the estate grounds. "Please, sit." Seer's gestured to comfortable chairs arranged around a low table, where tea had already been prepared. "First, I must thank you for assisting my sister with the creature that emerged from the rift." "No problem," Naruto replied, taking a seat. "Where I come from, we don't let monsters run loose either." "Indeed." Seer's sat across from him, while Rias took a chair to Naruto's right. Graphia remained standing near the door, ever vigilant. "Now, Rias tells me you're a shinobi, from another dimension entirely, one not previously known to us. And that you contain some sealed entity of great power." Naruto hesitated, remembering Gabriel's warning about revealing too much. Seer's noted this hesitation and smiled reassuringly. "You're under no obligation to share your secrets. However, the more we understand about you and your world, the better we can address these dimensional disturbances." That made sense. Naruto nodded. "In my world, there are 9-tailed beasts, massive creatures of pure chakra. I have the 9 tails, Kurama, sealed inside me. We work together now, but it wasn't always that way." "Fascinating." Seer's leaned forward. "And this, chakra, it's the energy you used to create copies of yourself in that spiral attack." "Yeah, everyone in my world has chakra, though most don't have nearly as much as I do." Naruto flexed his hand, feeling the strange way his energy flowed in this dimension. "It feels different here, though. Heavier, but also more potent. The laws of physics vary slightly between dimensions." Rias explained. "Your energy is adapting to our reality." Seer's nodded. "Which brings us to the important question, the dimensional tier. Did anything unusual occur in your world before you discovered it?" Naruto thought back. "Not really. I just felt something strange near an old shrine from my mother's clan. The Uzumaki were known for their sealing techniques, but the shrine was mostly ruins." "Sealing techniques," Seer's repeated, exchanging a significant look with Rias. "Interesting. Our records indicate that the barriers between dimensions were strengthened after the Great War through various sealing methods. You think there's a connection?" Naruto asked. "Perhaps. The timing seems too convenient to be coincidence." Seer's rose and moved to one of the bookshelves, running his fingers along ancient tomes before selecting one bound in red leather. There are legends of a time when travel between dimensions was more common, before the biblical god and the original Satans established the current order. He opened the book, revealing pages covered in complex magical formulas. These are records from the early days after the Great War, documenting how the dimensional boundaries were reinforced. Naruto leaned forward, studying the formulas. Some of them looked vaguely familiar, reminiscent of the sealing techniques his clan was famous for. "Some of these symbols, they're similar to Uzumaki sealing jutsu," he observed. Seer's eyes sharpened with interest. "Are they?" That would suggest some historical connection between our worlds, or at least knowledge that traversed the boundaries at some point. Rias tapped her chin thoughtfully. Could the dimensional barriers be naturally weakening over time? Perhaps they require periodic reinforcement. Or something is actively weakening them, Sirzex suggested more grimly. The creature you encountered may have been just one symptom of a larger problem. A knock at the door interrupted their discussion. Graphia opened it to reveal a devil messenger who bowed deeply. Lord Lucifer, we've detected another energy disturbance. Similar to the first, but in a different location. Sirzex frowned. Where? The old battlefield near the fallen angel territory border. Naruto stood. I should go. If more of those creatures are coming through. Not alone, Rias interjected, rising as well. The political situation is delicate. If you appeared near fallen angel territory without devil accompaniment, it could be misconstrued. Sirzex nodded. Rias is right. However, I need her here to help prepare for tomorrow's summit. He turned to Graphia. Please accompany Naruto to investigate this disturbance. Your power should be sufficient to handle any threats, and your PR essence will prevent political complications. Graphia bowed. As you wish, Lord Sirzex. Naruto looked between them, sensing unspoken tension. Are you sure? I can handle myself. I have no doubt, Sirzex replied with a small smile. But Graphia is one of our strongest devils and knows the political landscape intimately. Consider her your guide to our world. Naruto nodded, recognizing the wisdom in this approach. All right, let's go, then. As they prepared to depart, Rias approached Naruto. Be careful, she said quietly. And, thank you for your help earlier. It's rare to meet someone with power who isn't immediately concerned with political advantage. Naruto grinned. Where I come from, we call that being a decent person. Rias smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her face from regal beauty to something warmer. How refreshing. I look forward to learning more about your world, Naruto Uzumaki. The battlefield was a stark contrast to the lush forest where Naruto had first arrived, a blasted wasteland of scorched earth and shattered stone, with occasional remnants of what might have been structures long ago. What happened here? Naruto asked as he and Graphia materialized from the teleportation circle. This was one of the final battlegrounds of the Great War, Graphia explained, her voice solemn. The energy released was so catastrophic that nothing has grown here in millennia. Naruto surveyed the desolation, feeling echoes of ancient violence in the very air. Reminds me of the Valley of the End back home. Graphia raised an elegant eyebrow but didn't pursue the reference. Instead, she pointed toward a rippling distortion in the air about half a mile away. There, the new dimensional tear, unlike the subtle shimmer Naruto had encountered in his world. This tear was an angry wound in reality, pulsing with chaotic energy that sent visible waves through the surrounding air. It's worse than the first one, Naruto observed, already feeling Kurama stirring restlessly within him. Be careful, the Nine Tails warned. This tear feels wrong, corrupted somehow. As they approached, Naruto noticed something else, dark figures circling the tear at a distance. Their wings marked them clearly as fallen angels. We're being watched, he muttered to Graphia. Yes, fallen angel patrols. They're keeping their distance for now, but they'll certainly report our presence. The tear pulsed violently, and both Naruto and Graphia stopped their advance. The air around the distortion darkened, as if light itself was being devoured. Something's coming through, Graphia stated, ice forming around her hands as she prepared for battle. The tear split wider with a sound like reality itself screaming. From within emerged not a creature this time, but a swirling vortex of corrupted energy that spread outward in concentric rings. That's not good, Naruto said, already forming shadow clones. Whatever that energy touches, the advancing rings struck a boulder, which immediately crumbled to dust. Further out, one of the watching fallen angels failed to retreat quickly enough. The energy barely grazed his wing, which dissolved with his agonized scream echoing across the wasteland. It's consuming everything it touches, Graphia confirmed, her usual stoic expression betraying concern. We need to contain it before it spreads further. Naruto's mind raced through options. I might be able to counter it with Kurama's chakra, but I need to get closer. Too dangerous, Graphia replied, stepping forward. Let me try something first. She raised her hands. and the temperature plummeted. Massive ice formations crystallized around the spreading energy, attempting to create a barrier. For a moment it seemed to work. The corrupted energy slowed at the ice boundary. Then the ice itself began to blacken and decay. It's not enough, Graphia admitted, redoubling her efforts as sweat beaded on her forehead despite the freezing temperature. Naruto closed his eyes, entering his mindscape. Kurama, I need your help. The massive fox regarded him with ancient eyes. This energy is similar to the negative emotions that once poisoned me. I can counteract it, but it will require significant chakra. Then let's do it, Naruto said, determination hardening his features. Full Nine Tails mode. He opened his eyes, now red with slitted pupils, and golden chakra erupted around him in a blinding aura. His whisker marks deepened, his canines lengthened, and a translucent chakra form of Kurama manifested around him. Graphia's eyes widened in genuine surprise, a rare expression for the normally composed devil. What is this power? Naruto didn't answer, instead leaping forward with inhuman speed toward the advancing corruption. Golden chakra tails extended from his form, creating a barrier between the corrupted energy and the rest of the battlefield. Where the two forces met, reality itself seemed to waver, the golden chakra and black eruption pushing against each other like opposing tides. It's working, Naruto called, his voice overlaid with Kurama's deeper tones. But I need to close that tear. Graphia recovered from her shock and focused her power, creating a network of ice that reinforced Naruto's chakra barrier. The tear requires a sealing technique. Can your companion assist with that? I can, Kurama answered through Naruto. But we'll need to push back the corruption first. Naruto formed a unique hand seal, and his chakra flared brighter. Tailed Beast Shockwave. A concentrated blast of pure chakra erupted from his form, carving through the corruption and momentarily clearing a path to the dimensional tear itself. In that brief window, Naruto launched forward, golden chakra condensing around his right hand. 6 paths. Sealing technique. He called, slamming his palm against the center of the tear. Golden sealing formulas spread outward from the point of contact, wrapping around the edges of the dimensional wound. The tear shuddered, contracted, and with a final pulse of energy, sealed shut. Without its source, the corrupted energy began to dissipate, though it had already consumed a significant portion of the battlefield, leaving nothing but empty void in its wake. Naruto's Nine Tails mode faded, the golden chakra receding as he dropped to one knee, breathing heavily. Are you all right? Graphia asked, approaching cautiously. Yeah, Naruto managed, rising slowly. That took more out of me than I expected. This world's energy is different, harder to control. What you did was remarkable, Graphia stated, genuine respect in her voice. Few beings in our world could have contained that corruption. Naruto managed a tired grin. All in a day's work for Konoha's #1 unpredictable ninja. A slow clapping sound drew their attention. From the shadows of a ruined structure stepped Rainer, her black wings folded behind her and a calculating smile on her lips. Bravo, she purred. Such power, such potential. She approached, her hips swaying deliberately. Azazel will be absolutely fascinated by you. Graphia stepped partially in front of Naruto, her posture subtly shifting to one of protection. The fallen angels were merely observing from a distance. Why are you here, Rainer? Rainer's smile didn't waver. Call it personal interest. It's not every day a being from another dimension arrives with the power to seal rifts that our greatest sorcerers couldn't handle. Her violet eyes fixed on Naruto. What are you, really? No mere human contains such power. I told you before, Naruto replied, standing straighter despite his fatigue. I'm a shinobi from Konoha, and I have a tailed beast sealed inside me. Nothing more complicated than that. Rainer didn't look convinced. Well, whatever you are, I'll be seeing you at tomorrow's summit. She spread her wings, preparing to depart, but paused. Oh, and Naruto, be careful who you trust in our world. Angels have their agendas, devils have theirs, and some of us fallen angels have our own plans entirely. With that cryptic warning, she launched into the air and vanished into the crimson sky. Is she always that ominous? Naruto asked. Rainer has a reputation for ambition, Graphia replied carefully. And not all fallen angels share Azazel's desire for peace. Great, Naruto sighed, Politics gets more complicated by the minute. Graphia's lips quirked in the smallest hint of a smile. Welcome to supernatural diplomacy. Shall we return to the estate? Lord Searsex will want to hear about this development. Naruto nodded, casting one last look at the now sealed dimensional tear. Yeah, and I could use some food and rest before tomorrow's summit. Of course. Graphia formed a magic circle beneath them. Though I suspect rest may be in short supply. News of your abilities will spread quickly. Story of my life, Naruto muttered as the teleportation magic activated. Always the center of attention for better or worse. The battlefield vanished in crimson light, leaving behind only the void where corruption had consumed everything, a stark reminder of the danger that threatened both worlds. Dinner at the Grimoire estate proved to be an elaborate affair, with foods Naruto had never imagined served by a small army of devil servants. Seated at a massive table with Searsex, Rias, and several other high-ranking devils, Naruto felt distinctly out of place despite everyone's hospitality. Is there nothing similar to ramen? He asked hopefully after surveying the exotic spread. Rias looked puzzled. Ramen, noodles in broth, Naruto explained. My favorite food. Searsex smiled. I'm afraid our cuisine differs significantly from your world's. But I'm sure our chefs could attempt something similar tomorrow. It's fine, Naruto assured him, sampling what appeared to be some kind of roast meat. His eyes widened in surprise. This is actually really good. Conversation flowed around various topics. From the sealed dimensional tiers to the upcoming summit. Naruto described his world's ninja system and the 5 great nations, while Searsex and Rias explained more about Devil Society and the current political landscape. So this rating game system, Naruto said between bites, it's basically formalized combat for political standing. Precisely, Rias nodded. It allows devils to settle disputes and advance their status without the devastating wars of the past. Sounds a lot like our Chunin exams, Naruto observed. Though we use those to promote ninja ranks. As the meal concluded, Searsex addressed the table. Tomorrow's summit will be challenging. Representatives from all 3 factions will be present, many with their own agendas regarding these dimensional disturbances. He looked directly at Naruto. You'll be the center of attention, I'm afraid. I'm used to it, Naruto replied with a shrug. Though usually it's because I'm pulling pranks or saving the village. Not causing dimensional crises. Several devils chuckled at his frankness. There is one more matter to discuss, Searsex continued, his expression growing more serious. The sealing technique you used at the battlefield. Graphia's report was impressive. Naruto glanced at Graphia, who maintained her usual stoic expression. It was just something I learned during the war in my world. The Sage of 6 Paths taught me some advanced sealing techniques. Sage of 6 Paths, Rias inquired. Kind of like your biblical god, I guess. The original source of chakra in our world. Searsex leaned forward, interest sharpening his gaze. Could you teach these techniques to others? If more tiers appear, we may need multiple individuals capable of sealing them. Naruto hesitated. Maybe, but they'd need chakra like mine, and I'm not sure if anyone here has the same kind of energy. A fair point, Searsex acknowledged. We'll need to research compatibility between our magical systems and your chakra. He rose from his seat. For now, you should rest. Rias will show you to your quarters. As the dinner party dispersed, Rias led Naruto through the mansion's ornate hallways. My brother seems quite taken with you, she observed. He doesn't usually show so much personal interest in visitors. Is that good or bad? Rias smiled enigmatically. Both, perhaps. Searsex Lucifer's attention brings both opportunity and scrutiny. They stopped before an elegantly carved door. These will be your quarters for the duration of your stay, Rias explained, opening the door to reveal a luxurious suite that would have housed Naruto's entire apartment building back in Konoha. Whoa, he breathed, taking in the massive 4-poster bed, sitting area with plush furniture. And balcony overlooking the estate's grounds. This is all for me. Of course, Rias replied, amusement dancing in her eyes at his reaction. The Grimoire family prides itself on hospitality. Naruto wandered into the room, examining the unfamiliar furnishings with undisguised curiosity. I've never stayed anywhere this fancy. You should find everything you need, Rias continued. If you require anything else, simply pull this cord. She indicated an ornate rope near the bed. A servant will attend you. Naruto nodded, then turned to face her directly. Can I ask you something? Of course. What's your stake in all this? The dimensional tears, me being here, what does Rias Grimori really want? The question seemed to surprise her, but she recovered quickly, a measured smile replacing her momentary openness. Direct, aren't you? Very well. She moved to the balcony doors, gazing out at the crimson sky. Initially, I was simply investigating an anomaly in territory adjacent to my family's lands. Now, she turned back to face him. Now I see potential. Potential for what? Change, she replied simply. Our world has maintained a fragile peace since the Great War, but it's built on old hatreds and suspicions. Sometimes an outside perspective can shift entrenched positions. Her eyes studied him with new intensity. You don't respect our traditional boundaries because you don't know them. That could be valuable. Naruto considered this. So I'm a political tool. I wouldn't put it so crudely. Rias stepped closer. You're a wildcard, Naruto Uzumaki. And in a game where the rules have been fixed for millennia, wildcards can change everything. Before Naruto could respond, she continued, but that's enough politics for one night. Rest well. Tomorrow will test all of us. She moved toward the door, pausing at the threshold. And Naruto, thank you again for your assistance today. Whatever else happens, I believe your arrival may be exactly what our world needs right now. With that enigmatic statement, she departed, leaving Naruto alone in the opulent suite. She's ambitious, Kurama observed within his mindscape. Yeah, Naruto agreed, moving to the balcony to gaze at the strange crimson sky. But not in a bad way, I think. Reminds me a bit of Tsunade Bachin. Just be careful, we're pieces on a chessboard we don't fully understand yet. Naruto nodded, watching as distant lights moved across the underworld sky, devils going about their business in a world fundamentally different from his own. Tomorrow's going to be interesting, he murmured. 3 supernatural factions, dimensional tears, and me stuck in the middle. Just another Tuesday for you, Kurama replied dryly. Naruto laughed, the sound carrying across the balcony. NTO, the endless crimson night of the underworld. Morning in the underworld looked remarkably like evening, the crimson sky merely shifting to a slightly lighter shade. Naruto woke to a soft knocking at his door. Enter, he called, already dressed and alert after years of shinobi training. A devil servant entered, bowing deeply. Lord Grimori requests your presence in the main hall. The representatives from heaven and the Grigori have arrived for the summit. Already, Naruto glanced out the window, trying to gauge the time. What time is it? Early, my lord. The summit was moved forward, due to reports of another dimensional disturbance. Naruto's expression sharpened. Where? I'm not privy to those details, the servant apologized. Lord Searzex will explain everything. Right, lead the way. The main hall of the Grimori estate had been transformed overnight into a formal meeting chamber. 3 distinct sections had been arranged. Plush red seating for the devils, pristine white for the angels, and sleek black for the fallen angels. At the center stood a circular table where, presumably, the faction leaders would sit. The hall was already filled with representatives from all 3 groups. The tension in the air thick enough to cut with a kunai. Devils in formal attire clustered around Searzex, while a contingent of angels surrounded Gabriel and a golden-haired man Naruto hadn't met. On the fallen angel side, Rainer stood beside a relaxed-looking man with black and gold hair who seemed more interested in a magical device in his hands than the proceedings. All conversation ceased when Naruto entered, every supernatural eye turning to assess him. Ah, our guest of honor, Searzex announced, breaking the silence. Please, Naruto, join us at the central table. Naruto approached, acutely aware of the scrutiny from all sides. Gabriel offered a serene smile of encouragement, while Rainer's lips curved in that same predatory expression she'd worn before. Rias, seated beside her brother, gave a small nod of acknowledgement. Naruto Uzumaki, the golden-haired man beside Gabriel spoke, his voice carrying divine authority despite its gentleness. I am Michael, leader of Heaven's forces. Gabriel has told me much about you. All good things, I hope, Naruto replied with a respectful nod. Michael smiled. Indeed, your assistance with the dimensional tears has not gone unnoticed. And I'm Azazel, The relaxed man from the fallen angel contingent interjected, finally looking up from his device. Governor General of the Grigori and collector of rare phenomena. His eyes gleamed with scientific curiosity as they studied Naruto. And you, my friend, are about as rare as they come. Naruto took the empty seat at the central table, finding himself position. Ed between the three faction leaders, a symbolism that wasn't lost on him. Now that we're all present, Sears began, let us address the matter at hand. Three-dimensional tiers have appeared within the past 24 hours, each more unstable than the last. The most recent manifested in human territory, requiring intervention from all three factions to contain. Murmurs spread through the assembled supernatural beings. Our combined research suggests these tiers are not random occurrences, Michael continued. They follow a pattern consistent with the weakening of dimensional barriers that were established after the Great War. In simpler terms, Azazel added, leaning back in his chair, the walls between worlds are developing cracks, and our guest here happened to stumble through one of them. All eyes returned to Naruto. I didn't exactly plan to dimension hop, he pointed out. I was investigating strange energy near a shrine in my world. Yes, about that shrine, Sears leaned forward. You mentioned it belonged to your mother's clan, the Uzumaki, who specialized in sealing techniques. Naruto nodded. Yeah, they were famous for it. But the shrine was mostly ruins. Our historical records, Michael interjected, speak of mortal allies who assisted in establishing the dimensional barriers after the Great War. Allies with unique sealing abilities beyond what our magic could accomplish alone. Azazel's expression sharpened with interest. Are you suggesting his ancestors might have helped establish the very barriers that are now failing? It's a theory, Sears acknowledged. One that would explain why Naruto was able to seal the second tear when our best efforts failed. The implications settled over the gathering like a heavy cloak. Naruto processed this new information, connecting it to what little he knew about his clan's history. If that's true, he said slowly, then maybe I'm here for a reason. Maybe I can help fix whatever's happening to these barriers. Perhaps, Michael agreed, but first we must understand why they're failing now, after millennia of stability. Rainer stepped forward from the fallen angel contingent. We've analyzed energy samples from all three tiers. They contain traces of an energy signature not seen since the Great War. Whose energy? Gabriel asked, tension evident in her usually serene features. Rainer's eyes gleamed. Trihexa. The name sent visible shock waves through the assembly. Devils shifted uneasily, angels exchanged alarmed glances, and even Azazel's casual demeanor hardened into seriousness. Impossible, Michael stated firmly. The beast remains sealed. Its complete form. Yes, Azazel agreed, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. But if even fragments of its power are leaking into the dimensional barriers. Who or what is Trihexa? Naruto interrupted, growing frustrated with being the only one in the dark. Sears regarded him gravely. A primordial beast of destruction. A being so powerful that God himself could not destroy it, only seal it away beyond the boundaries of our world. Think of it as our version of your tailed beasts, Azazel added. Except imagine all nine combined. Into one entity with a singular purpose, annihilation. Naruto's expression hardened as he made the connection. And now it's trying to break free by weakening the walls between dimensions. That appears to be the case, Michael confirmed. Though how it gained the awareness to target these specific points remains unknown. Perhaps it has help, Rainer suggested, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. Someone who stands to gain from unleashing chaos across multiple worlds. Uneasy murmurs spread through the gathering as representatives from each faction eyed those from the others with renewed suspicion. Accusations without evidence benefit no one, Gabriel stated firmly. Agreed, Sears said. What matters now is containing these tiers and reinforcing the dimensional barriers. Which brings us back to our visitor. Azazel noted, eyes fixed on Naruto. Your sealing technique was effective against the second tier. Could it work on a larger scale? Naruto considered this, mentally consulting with Kurama. Maybe, but I'd need to understand more about how these barriers were created in the first place. The original sealing formula is contained in artifacts held by each faction, Michael explained. For security, no single faction possesses the complete formula. Which means, Rias spoke up for the first time, that true cooperation will be required if we're to address this threat. Sears nodded. Precisely. I propose a joint task force. Representatives from each faction working directly with Naruto to reconstruct the original sealing formula and develop a strategy to reinforce the barriers. The proposal met with mixed reactions, centuries of distrust not easily set aside even in the face of common danger. And who would lead this task force? Rainer asked, skepticism evident in her tone. I nominate Gabriel, Michael stated. Her knowledge of the original seals is unparalleled. Unacceptable, a devil from Sears's contingent objected. Heaven cannot hold such authority alone. I agree, Azazel said, surprising everyone. Which is why I suggest our task force have 3 co-leaders, 1 from each faction. He grinned. And since we're discussing nominations, I put forward Rainer to represent the Grigori. Naruto noticed Gabriel's subtle frown at this suggestion, though she maintained her composed exterior. And I nominate Rias Grimori to represent devil interests. Sears added. Her research on dimensional phenomena makes her uniquely qualified. The arrangement seemed calculated to ensure maximum tension, Naruto thought. Gabriel, Rias, and Rainer, 3 powerful women from opposing factions, each with their own agenda. What about me? He asked. Where do I fit into this structure? You, Naruto Uzumaki, Michael replied, would be the keystone. Not aligned with any faction, yet vital to all. A neutral party with the power to seal dimensional tiers, Azazel added. Quite the valuable position. The implication wasn't lost on Naruto. He would be both essential and vulnerable, courted and potentially exploited by all 3 factions. Fine, he agreed after a moment's consideration. But I have one condition. He looked at each faction leader in turn. Complete honesty. No hidden agendas, no withholding information. If we're going to fix this, we need to trust each other. His words hung in the air, challenging centuries of supernatural politics based on deception and advantage. A noble sentiment, Sears said finally. Though perhaps idealistic, I agree to your terms, Gabriel stated firmly. Heaven has nothing to hide regarding this threat. Azazel chuckled. Transparency isn't exactly the Grigori's strong suit, but in this case, I'll make an exception. Agreed. All eyes turned to Sears, who nodded after a moment's consideration. The devil faction agrees as well. The common danger outweighs our traditional secrecy. With that settled, the details of the task force were quickly arranged. Each faction would provide access to their portion of the original sealing formula, along with scholars and warriors to assist in both research and containing any new dimensional tiers that might appear. As the formal meeting concluded and the representatives broke into smaller discussion groups, Naruto found himself approached by Gabriel, Rias, and Rainer simultaneously, a living representation of the 3 factions' interest in him. Well, he said with a wry smile, this should be interesting. Indeed, Gabriel agreed, her serene expression belied by the wariness in her eyes as she regarded Rainer. I look forward to working closely with you, Naruto, Rias added, emphasis on closely, that wasn't lost on the other 2 women. Rainer simply smiled, a calculating expression that revealed nothing of her true thoughts. As do I have so many questions about your world and your power. Naruto glanced between the 3 of them, suddenly understanding why Kakashi had warned him about complications his investigation might bring. One world-threatening crisis at a time, ladies, he said, attempting to diffuse the tension with humor. First we deal with these dimensional tiers, then we can worry about faction politics. Gabriel's expression softened slightly, wisely said, shall we begin by examining the sealing formulas each faction has brought? The 4 moved toward a side amber where ancient scrolls and artifacts had been assembled, the first tentative step in an alliance that would either save multiple worlds, or crumble under the weight of ancient rivalries and new ambitions. As they walked, Naruto couldn't help but reflect on the strange turn his life had taken. From Konoha's troublemaking orphan to the potential savior of multiple dimensions, working alongside angels, devils, and fallen angels. Just another day in the life of Naruto Uzumaki, Kurama commented dryly within his mindscape. Yeah, Naruto thought back. But at least it's never boring. With that thought, he stepped into the chamber where the fate of multiple worlds now rested on an unprecedented alliance, and his own unique abilities. Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2. Fallen Grace Morning ARR. IVED in the Grimoire Estate's east wing with a soft golden glow created by magical orbs designed to mimic sunlight. Naruto sat cross-legged on the floor of his suite, eyes closed in meditation. The calm, plex ceiling formulas he'd studied the previous day drifted through his mind like autumn leaves, beautiful in their complexity yet frustratingly incomplete. "You're overthinking it," Kurama's voice rumbled within his mindscape. "Easy for you to say," Naruto replied. "You're not the one trying to piece together thousand-year-old seals from 3 different supernatural factions. No, but I am. The living embodiment of chakra sealed inside you. I understand sealing better than you might think." Naruto's eyes opened, a new idea forming. "You're right, maybe I've been approaching this wrong." He rose, stretching muscles stiff from hours of meditation. "Instead of trying to combine their formulas, I should be looking for the connections, the points where they were meant to interlock." A.K. knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," he called. The door opened to reveal Rias, dressed in a crimson blouse and black skirt rather than her school uniform, her hair cascading like liquid fire over her shoulders. "Good morning," she greeted. "I hope you slept well despite yesterday's intense discussions." "I've slept through worse," Naruto replied with a grin. "Though I've been up for hours looking over those sealing formulas." Rias nodded, her gaze falling to the scrolls spread across the floor. "Any insights?" "Maybe. I need to test a theory, but I'll need access to all 3 factions' seal fragments at once. That's actually why I'm here." Rias stepped further into the room. "We've arranged a working session at a neutral location, an ancient library in the human world. Representatives from all 3 factions will be present." "The human world?" Naruto perked up. "I haven't seen that part of your reality yet. It's quite different from both the underworld and heaven," Rias said. A small smile playing on her lips. "Humans live their lives largely unaware of our existence, though some with special awareness or abilities can perceive supernatural beings. So it's a secret world within a world." Naruto gathered the scrolls, carefully rolling them. "Reminds me of how civilians back home often don't notice ninja operations happening right under their noses." An apt comparison. Rias moved toward the door. "We'll be departing in an hour. The others are already gathering in the main hall." Naruto nodded, then paused. "Hey, Rias, can I ask you something?" She turned, eyebrow raised. "Of course. Yesterday, during the summit, I noticed tensions between you, Gabriel, and Rainer went beyond just faction rivalry." He watched her carefully. "There's something personal there, isn't there?" Rias's expression cooled slightly, her political mask sliding into place. "What makes you think that?" "I grew up surrounded by people hiding their true feelings," Naruto said simply. "I got pretty good at seeing beneath the surface." For a moment, Rias maintained her composed exterior, then sighed softly. "Perceptive, aren't you?" She leaned against the doorframe, her mask slipping to reveal something more genuine. "Gabriel and I have a complicated history. During the peace negotiations after the Great War, our families worked closely together. There were disagreements about certain terms. And Rainer." A flash of something darker crossed Rias's features. "Rainer is dangerous in ways that go beyond her faction allegiance. Be careful around her, Naruto. She has ambitions that may not align with Azazel's official position." Before Naruto could press further, Rias straightened. "We should prepare for departure. Oh, and you might want to consider changing your attire. Your current clothing is rather distinctive for the human world." Naruto glanced down at his orange and black jacket. "What's wrong with what I'm wearing?" Rias's lips curved in amusement. "Nothing. If you don't mind drawing attention. I've taken the liberty of having some human world clothing delivered for you." She gestured to a package on a nearby chair that Naruto hadn't noticed before. "Consider it a gift from the Grimoire family." With that, she departed, leaving Naruto to prepare for the day ahead. The ancient library stood on a hillside overlooking a sprawling human city. Its exterior disguised as an abandoned stone church. To human eyes, a sign declaring, "Danger, structural damage, keep out," warded away the curious. To supernatural beings, the true end. A tour of the building was evident, a nexus of knowledge preserved by mutual agreement among the 3 factions. Naruto stepped through the magically concealed entrance, now dressed in jeans, a blue button-up shirt, and a black jacket, clothes that felt strange after years in his shinobi gear. Gabriel and Rainer were already inside, along with several scholars from each faction. The interior of the library defied its external appearance, stretching impossibly far in all directions with shelves reaching toward a vaulted ceiling painted with celestial maps. Books, scrolls, and tablets in languages, both familiar and utterly alien, filled the shelves, while work tables equipped with magical instruments occupied the central space. Wow, Naruto breathed, taking in the vast repository of knowledge. Impressive, isn't it? Gabriel approached, her 12 wings now hidden, appearing as a stunningly beautiful human woman in a white dress. This library predates the Great War. It's one of the few places all three factions agreed to preserve, which tells you something about how much we all value knowledge, Rainer added, sauntering over. Unlike Gabriel, she had maintained some of her supernatural appearance. Her violet eyes still held their unnatural gleam. She wore a provocative black dress that clung to her curves, drawing appreciative glances from several scholars. "You clean up nicely," she purred, eyeing Naruto's human attire with approval. Gabriel's expression remained serene, though Naruto noticed a slight tightening around her eyes. "Shall we proceed? Time is of the essence." They moved to the central work table, where ancient artifacts had been arranged: Heaven's glowing crystal tablet, the Underworld's obsidian codex, and the Grigori's bronze disc. Each contained 1/3 of the original sealing formula used to reinforce the dimensional barriers after the Great War. Rias joined them, nodding respectfully to the assembled scholars. "Have we made any progress?" An elderly devil adjusted his spectacles. "The formula components resist integration. They were deliberately designed to function only when brought together under specific conditions by representatives of all three factions. A safeguard," Gabriel explained, "to ensure no single faction could manipulate the barriers independently." Naruto studied the three artifacts, extending his senses to feel the energy patterns within them. "They're like puzzle pieces," he observed, "but the edges have been deliberately distorted to prevent easy connection." He turned to the scholars. "What were the original conditions needed to activate the complete formula?" A white-haired angel consulted an ancient text. "The records speak of a ritual conducted at the Nexus of Realms, requiring the combined power of angels, devils, and fallen angels. Channeled through a mortal vessel with exceptional sealing abilities." A mortal vessel? Naruto's eyes widened as the pieces connected. "Someone like an Uzumaki." The scholars exchanged glances of surprise. "The family name is not recorded," the angel admitted. "But the description matches what we know of your clan's abilities." Rainer leaned forward, genuine interest overriding her usual calculated demeanor. "Are you suggesting your ancestors were the mortal vessels who helped establish the dimensional barriers?" "It would explain why Naruto was able to seal the second tear," Rias noted, excitement coloring her voice. "His chakra resonates with the original seals because it's similar to what was used to create them." Naruto placed his hand near the three artifacts, not quite touching them. "There's something familiar about the energy pattern. It reminds me of the Uzumaki shrine where I found the tear in my world." "Try channeling your chakra through them," Gabriel suggested. "Perhaps they'll respond to your energy signature." Naruto nodded, placing one hand on each artifact. He closed his eyes, focusing his chakra, not Kurama's, but his own natural energy. The artifacts remained inert. "Nothing," he sighed. "Perhaps we're missing something," Rias mused, studying the historical texts. The ritual required specific conditions. A sudden tremor shook the library, books tumbling from shelves as the floor undulated beneath their feet. Outside, the sky darkened unnaturally. "Another tear," Gabriel stated, her wings manifesting instantly. Rainer was already moving toward the exit. "And close. I can feel the distortion from here." Naruto grabbed the three artifacts, stuffing them into a bag. "We should bring these. If there's a connection between my chakra and the tears, I might need them." No one argued as they rushed outside to find the sky split by a jagged crack of darkness, pulsing with malevolent energy. Unlike the previous tears, this one was massive, stretching across half the visible sky above the human city. "This is bad," Naruto stated the obvious. "Really bad. The human population." Gabriel's face showed genuine concern. "They're defenseless against whatever might come through. We need to evacuate the area," Rias decided, already activating a communication circle. "Graphia," We need emergency protocols initiated in the human city below the library. Raynor spread her black wings. I'll alert the Grigori patrol units. We need containment barriers established immediately. As the two flew off to coordinate their respective factions, Gabriel turned to Naruto. Can you seal something this large? Naruto studied the massive tear, calculating the chakra requirements. Not alone. Even with Kurama's power, that tear is too large and unstable. Then we'll have to work together, Gabriel stated firmly. All three factions combining their power, channeled through you, just like the original ritual. Before Naruto could respond, the tear pulsed violently, and something began to emerge. Not a single entity, but hundreds of smaller creatures that resembled the one he'd fought in the forest, pouring from the rift like a swarm of malevolent insects. Corrupted souls, Gabriel identified them, light gathering in her hands. Humans and supernatural beings twisted by exposure to Trihex's energy. The creatures descended toward the city, their collective shrieking audible even from the hilltop. Human screams soon followed as the first wave reached the streets below. We need to stop them before they spread, Naruto decided, already forming shadow clones. Dozens of copies materialized, leaping toward the city to intercept the creatures. Gabriel launched into the air, spears of light forming around her. I'll focus on the tear itself. Perhaps I can slow its expansion while you and the others handle the creatures. Naruto nodded, creating more clones to assist in the evacuation of civilians. He turned to see Rias returning, crimson energy swirling around her hands. The Grimoire forces are creating a perimeter, she reported. But there are too many creatures breaking through. Then we take the fight to them, Naruto stated. Entering his initial Nine Tails mode, golden chakra flaring around him. Ready. Rias's eyes widened slightly at his transformation, but she nodded, determination hardening her features. Always. Together they leapt from the hilltop, descending toward the chaos engulfing the city streets. The scene below was apocalyptic. Corrupted creatures rampaged through streets clogged with panicked humans. Wild devils in disguise attempted to herd civilians to safety. Angels circled overhead, light spears raining down on the creatures with surgical precision to avoid human casualties. Naruto landed in the center of a major intersection, Rias touching down beside him. Immediately, several creatures sensed their power and charged. Power of destruction, Rias called, unleashing waves of crimson-black energy that disintegrated the nearest attackers. Naruto formed a massive Rasengan, driving it through three creatures simultaneously. They're faster than the first one we fought, he observed, dodging a swipe from clawed tentacles. And more intelligent, Rias added, erecting a barrier to block acidic projectiles spat by another creature. They're coordinating their attacks. Across the city, Naruto could sense his shadow clones engaging in similar battles, while above, Gabriel and now Raynor led aerial assaults against creatures attempting to spread to other districts. A particularly large corrupted soul crashed through a building, sending concrete and glass raining down on civilians cowering nearby. Naruto moved instantly, chakra arms extending from his golden arm to catch the debris before it could crush the humans. Get to the subway, he shouted to them, holding tons of concrete aloft. Devil evacuation teams are gathering people there. The civilians street. Ared in shock at his glowing form before self-preservation kicked in and they ran toward the subway entrance. Rias appeared beside him, destroying the large creature with a concentrated blast. The evacuation is proceeding, but too slowly. These creatures seem drawn to population centers. They're feeding on fear, Naruto realized, setting down the debris safely. The more terror they cause, the stronger they get. A sudden explosion from several blocks away drew their attention. Through the smoke, a figure emerged fighting with unusual effectiveness against the creatures, a young man with brown hair wielding a red gauntlet that glowed with power. Issei. Rias identified him, relief evident in her voice. My pawn. You're what? Naruto asked, confused by the terminology. I'll explain later, Rias replied, already moving toward her servant. He possesses one of the 13 Longinus, sacred gear weapons of immense power. They fought their way through the chaos, joining Issei as He faced down a cluster of creatures using his power-enhancing gauntlet. Bushu, he called, seeing Rias. His eyes widened at the sight of Naruto's glowing form. Who's this? An ally, Rias explained briefly. Naruto Uzumaki from another dimension. Another dimension. Issei looked impressed despite the chaos. That's... Look out. A creature larger than the others burst from the ground beneath them, forcing all three to leap clear. This one was different. More humanoid, with features that suggested it had once been a devil before corruption took hold. It's evolving, Rias observed with alarm. Taking characteristics from beings it consumes. The creature roared, intelligence gleaming in its multiple eyes as it assessed its opponents. It focused on Naruto, evidently recognizing his power as the greatest threat. You two handle the smaller ones, Naruto decided. I'll take the big guy. Not waiting for agreement, he charged, forming a Rasenshuriken in each hand. The creature displayed unexpected agility, dodging his initial attacks and counter-attacking with concentrated blasts of corrupted energy. Naruto weaved through the barrage, shadow clones appearing to distract the creature while he maneuvered behind it. Got you, he called, driving a Rasengan into its back. The creature howled but didn't fall. Instead, its flesh rippled and absorbed the attack, turning the energy back on. Naruto in a wave of corruption that sent him crashing through a storefront. It's adapting to your chakra, Kurama warned. Standard attacks won't work. Then we try something new, Naruto muttered, rising from the rubble. He focused, drawing on nature energy to enter Sage mode alongside his Nine Tails chakra. The combined power sent cracks spreading through the pavement beneath his feet as he stepped back into the street. The creature hesitated, sensing the change in its opponent's energy. Let's see you absorb this, Naruto challenged, forming hand seals rarely used since the war. Six Paths Technique. Truth-seeking orbs. Black spheres of condensed chakra formed behind him, responding to his will as he directed them toward the creature. Where they struck, the corruption simply ceased to exist. The matter itself nullified rather than destroyed. The creature shrieked in genuine fear, attempting to retreat, but Naruto was relentless. The truth-seeking orbs pursued, systematically erasing portions of the creature until nothing remained. Panting slightly from the chakra expenditure, Naruto turned to find Rias and Issei staring at him in amazement. That was, Issei began. Later, Rias cut him off. Refocusing on their situation, the smaller creatures are retreating toward the tear. Indeed, all across the city, the corrupted souls were abandoning their attacks on humans. Flowing back toward the massive rift in the sky like water down a drain. That's not retreat, Naruto realized with dawning horror. They're being recalled. Above the city center, the tear widened further. Darkness spilling out like ink in water. The returning creatures were absorbed into this darkness, which began to coalesce into a massive shape. We need to get back to the tear, Naruto decided. Now, Rias created a transportation circle, and the three teleported to the hilltop where they had started. Gabriel and Rainer were already there, along with representatives from all three factions. The creatures are being absorbed into something much larger, Gabriel reported, her usual serenity strained by concern. A manifestation, an elderly angel explained. Not Trihexa itself, but an extension of its consciousness taking physical form. The darkness continued to gather, shaping itself into a colossal humanoid figure with multiple wings reminiscent of all three supernatural races, feathered like angels, leathery like devils, and blade-like appendages similar to certain fallen angels. Its face was a void, features constantly shifting between different visages. It's mimicking us, Rainer observed, uncharacteristic fear evident in her voice. Creating a form that combines elements from all three factions. Because it's studying us, Naruto concluded. Learning our strengths and weaknesses. The manifestation fully emerged, hovering above the city like a dark god. Its void-like eyes fixed on the gathered forces on the hilltop, and it spoke, not with sound, but with a psychic pressure that made everyone wince. Divided you stand, divided you fall. The voice reverberated in their minds, ancient and cold. What does it want? Issei asked, his gauntlet glowing defensively. To exploit our divisions, Rias answered grimly. The three factions have been separated by hatred and suspicion for millennia. It's using that against us. Your barriers weaken as your resolve falters. The mortal vessel returns, but too late. Too divided. The manifestation raised its massive hands, and the tear behind it widened further, reality itself screaming in protest. Mortal vessel. Rainer turned to Naruto. It's talking about you. are your ancestors. Naruto's mind raced, connecting fragments of information. The original ritual, it required representatives from all three factions working together through a mortal vessel. He reached into his bag, pulling out the three artifacts. We need to recreate that ritual. Now, Gabriel understood immediately. Form a triangle, she commanded. Taking Heaven's crystal tablet. Each faction, take your artifact. Rias took the Underworld's codex, while Rainer grabbed the Grigori's disc. They positioned themselves around Naruto, who stood at the center. Channel your power through your faction's artifact, Gabriel instructed. Focus it toward Naruto. The manifestation above seemed to realize their intention. It roared silently, the pressure of its rage causing blood to trickle from the ears of weaker beings present. It descended rapidly toward them, darkness trailing like corrupt banners. You cannot unite. Your hatred runs too deep. Your suspicions too ingrained. Prove it wrong, Naruto urged, looking at each woman in turn. Whatever differences exist between your factions, whatever personal histories you share, set them aside. Right now, we need to be one force. Gabriel nodded, her 12 wings unfurling to their full magnificence as her power flowed into the crystal tablet. It began to glow with divine light. Rias's crimson aura intensified, the power of destruction channeled with precision into the obsidian codex, which pulsed with dark energy. Rainer hesitated, conflict visible on her face. Rainer, Naruto locked eyes with her. Whatever your true agenda is, whatever you're hiding, it won't matter if that thing tears our worlds apart. Something shifted in her expression, a decision made. Her black wings expanded, but instead of the typical 2 to 6 wings of a mid-rank fallen angel, 12 midnight wings unfurled behind her, shocking everyone present. You're Gabriel began. Later, Rainer cut her off. Power surging from her hands into the bronze disc, which hummed with chaotic energy. The three artifacts lifted from their hands, floating in a triangle around Naruto. Lines of energy connected them, forming a complex seal in the air. Naruto channeled his chakra, attempting to integrate with the three power sources surrounding him. But something was missing. The energies remained separate, unwilling to merge. Failure, the manifestation mocked as it drew closer. Your trinity is broken. It's not working, Rias called over the howling wind that had begun to circle them. The energies won't integrate. Naruto closed his eyes, focusing inward. Kurama, I need your help. The seal requires harmony between opposing forces, the Nine Tails observed. Remy, NDS me of how you mastered my chakra by finding balance between darkness and light. Balance. Naruto's eyes snapped open. That's it. We're trying to force the energies to merge, but they were ever meant to become one. They're meant to achieve balance. He reached out, touching all three artifacts simultaneously. Don't try to overcome each other's power, he instructed. Instead, find the point of equilibrium between them. Like different notes forming a chord. Gabriel understood first, adjusting her energy output to complement rather than compete with the others. Rias followed her lead, her power of destruction shifting to harmonize with heaven's light. Rainer struggled, her power fluctuating as if fighting an internal battle. Naruto met her gaze, seeing genuine conflict there. Whatever you're hiding, he said softly. For her ears alone, whatever you're afraid of, let it go. Just for this moment, something in his words reached her. Rainer's power stabilized, finding its place in the delicate balance being formed. The three artifacts began to orbit Naruto faster, their energies interweaving in complex patterns. The seal around him solidified, ancient symbols appearing in the air, some from angel script, others from devil runes, and more from fallen angel glyphs. Naruto recognized elements of Uzumaki sealing techniques woven throughout, confirming his theory about his clan's involvement. He began forming hand seals, channeling his chakra to activate the completed formula. 6-path sealing technique. Dimensional barrier restoration. Golden chakra erupted from him, carrying the combined power of the three factions upward toward the tear and the manifestation descending toward them. The darkness recoiled as the sealing energy struck it, forcing it back toward the rift. This changes nothing. I am eternal. I am inevitable. The manifestation fought against the sealing energy, its form distorting as it struggled to maintain its presence in their reality. For a moment, it seemed to be winning, pushing back against their combined power. We need more power, Rias called, strain evident in her voice. Naruto nodded, activating his complete tailed beast mode. Kurama's chakra form manifested around him, the massive fox avatar roaring defiance at the darkness above. The ceiling formula expanded, golden chains of pure chakra extending from Naruto's Kurama avatar to wrap around the manifestation. Where they touched, the darkness hissed and dissolved. Now, Naruto commanded, everyone, push with everything you have. Gabriel, Rias, and Rainer channeled the last reserves of their power through their artifacts. The other supernatural beings present added their energy as well, a unified assault across faction lines. The manifestation shrieked in silent rage as the ceiling chains dragged it back toward the tier. Its form began to disintegrate, pulled apart by the combined forces arrayed against it. I will return. The barriers weaken. The Seal Master cannot save you forever. With those final ominous words, the manifestation was forced back through the dimensional tier. Naruto completed the sealing formula, and golden light spread across the rift like stitches closing a wound. The tear sealed with a final pulse of energy that rippled across the sky before fading to normal. Silence fell over the hilltop as Naruto's tailed beast mode receded, leaving him standing at the center of the three women, each looking exhausted but triumphant. The artifacts slowly descended, their energies spent. We did it. Issei broke the silence, pumping his fist in the air. For now, Gabriel cautioned, her wings folding behind her as she regained her composure. But the entity's final words were concerning. The barriers continue to weaken. Rias nodded, her analytical mind already working past the immediate victory. And this was merely a manifestation, not Trihexa itself. All eyes turned to Rainer, whose 12 wings were still visible, a clear indication of her true rank. I believe you have some explaining to do, Gabriel stated, her tone neutral but firm. Rainer's confident mask returned, though weariness showed in the set of her shoulders. I suppose I do. She looked around at the gathered representatives of all three factions. But not here, not with so many ears listening. Naruto stepped forward. The library. We'll return there, just the four of us. No one argued with his decision, though the implications of Rainer's revealed status had clearly sent ripples of speculation through the assembled supernatural beings. The Ancient library was eerily quiet after the chaos outside. Wards had protected it from damage, the books and scrolls undisturbed despite the apocalyptic battle that had occurred mere miles away. Rainer stood by a window, her 12 wings now hidden once more, though the aura of power around her remained unmistakable. Gabriel and Rias seated themselves at opposite sides of the central table, their postures reflecting their respective factions' dignity. Naruto remained standing, feeling that sitting might give the impression of taking sides. So, he broke the tense silence. 12 wings. That's significant, I'm guessing. Very. Gabriel confirmed. Among angels and fallen angels, the number of wings indicates power and rank. 12 is the maximum, reserved for the highest echelons. Which means, Rias continued, her eyes never leaving Rainer, that you are either one of the original fallen angels from before the Great War. Or royalty, Gabriel finished. A direct descendant of the original Grigori leadership. Rainer smiled thinly. The latter. My true name is Rainer Barakiel, daughter of one of the Grigori's founding leaders. I've been masking my power and lineage for personal reasons. Does Azazel know? Gabriel asked. Of course. He's helped maintain my cover. Rainer turned from the window, facing them directly. My father fell in love with a human woman. Their relationship was controversial. When she died, many blamed my father for failing to protect her. I chose to make my own way, without the weight of my lineage opening doors, or painting targets on my back. Naruto studied her, sensing there was more to the story. And your interest in the dimensional tiers. In me, something flashed in Rainer's violet eyes. Calculation, certainly, but also something more genuine. The Grigori have records suggesting the original mortal vessels who helped establish the dimensional barriers were brought to our world for that specific purpose. When you appeared, I recognized the similarities in energy signature. I wanted to understand the connection. For the Grigori's benefit, Rias asked skeptically. Initially, yes, Rainer didn't bother denying it. But, after witnessing what came through that tear today, my priorities have shifted. Gabriel's expression remained carefully neutral. 12 winged fallen angels have historically sought to upset the balance between factions. Your kind were among the most aggressive during the Great War. Times change, Rainer replied. Even the most entrenched hatred can evolve. Naruto moved to the table, placing the 3 artifacts at its center. These responded to all 3 of you working together. That has to mean something. It means the original design remains valid, Gabriel acknowledged. The dimensional barriers were created through cooperation, and can only be maintained the same way. Which brings us to our next steps, Rias said, ever practical. The manifestation was driven back, but made it clear this isn't over. The tears will continue, possibly with increasing frequency. We need to strengthen the barriers permanently, Naruto concluded. Not just patch them when tears appear. Rainer approached the table, her demeanor more serious than Naruto had yet seen. There's something in the Grigori archives that might help. Ancient texts speaking of a ritual site, a nexus where the original barriers were established. The convergence point, Gabriel's eyes widened in recognition. It was thought lost after the Great War. Not lost, Rainer corrected. Hidden, deliberately OBSC. Urged to prevent any single faction from accessing it. Rias leaned forward, intrigued despite her wariness of Rainer. Where is it? That's the problem. The location was divided into 3 parts. Each faction holds one piece of the map. Naruto laughed softly, drawing surprised looks from the 3 women. Of course it was. You 3 really don't do anything the simple way, do you? Despite the tension, small smiles appeared on their faces. It was a different time, Gabriel explained. Trust between our factions was non-existent. And now, Naruto looked between them, after what we just accomplished together. The 3 women exchanged glances, centuries of ingrained caution warring with the fresh memory of their successful cooperation. Heaven will share its portion of the map, Gabriel decided. The threat transcends our old divisions. Rias nodded. The Grimoire family has access to the Devil Archives. I will retrieve our section. Eyes turned to Rainer, who shrugged elegantly. The Grigori portion is already in my possession. Azazel entrusted it to me when the first tear appeared. He knew. Rias asked sharply. He suspected. Rainer clarified. The Grigori have been monitoring dimensional fluctuations for centuries. Recent readings concerned him enough to prepare contingencies. Gabriel rose, her decision made. I must report to Michael regarding today's events and retrieve Heaven's map fragment. Shall we reconvene tomorrow? No. Naruto shook his head. That manifestation made it clear time is running out. We need to locate the convergence point immediately. Naruto's right, Rias agreed. We should gather the map pieces and proceed directly. Every hour we delay risks another tear forming. Very well, Gabriel conceded. I can return with Heaven's portion within 3 hours. As can I with the Devil section, Rias added. Rainer nodded. 3 hours, back here. As Gabriel and Rias departed to their respective realms, Naruto found himself alone with Rainer, the newly revealed fallen angel princess. So, he began conversationally, any other secrets you're keeping? Rainer's lips curved in amusement. Many, but none relevant to our current situation. She studied him with those unnervingly perceptive violet eyes. You're not what I expected, Naruto Uzumaki. What did you expect? Someone easier to manipulate, she admitted candidly. Somio. Nay, who would pledge allegiance to whichever faction offered the most power or prestige. Naruto snorted. Not my style. Where I come from, allegiance is earned through trust and shared values, not political advantage. How refreshingly naive, Rainer said, though without the cutting edge her words might normally carry. And yet, you managed to unite 3 beings who normally wouldn't share breathing space, let alone power. Maybe that's why I'm here, Naruto mused, looking out the window at the human city below, where cleanup efforts were already underway, supernatural beings using magic to repair damage and alter human memories of the event. Not just because of some connection to the original seals, but because I don't carry your baggage. I see people, not factions. Rainer moved to stand beside him, her proximity sending an inexplicable tension through his body. And what do you see when you look at me, Naruto Uzumaki? He turned to face her, blue eyes meeting violet. Someone hiding behind masks. Someone powerful pretending to be less than she is. Someone with her own agenda. He paused. But also someone who, when it mattered most, set aside whatever game she was playing to help save countless lives. Something flickered across Rainer's features, surprise, perhaps, at being seen so clearly. For a brief moment, her carefully constructed persona slipped, revealing uncertainty beneath. Don't get used to it. She recovered quickly, trademark smirk returning. Self-preservation happens to align with altruism in this particular case. Naruto just smiled, not pushing further. If you say so. 3 hours later, as promised, Gabriel and Rias returned to the library. Each carried an artifact containing their faction's portion of the map to the convergence point. Iner produced a bronze amulet from within her clothing, the Grigori's contribution. Now what? Naruto asked as the 3 pieces were laid on the table. Did they fit together somehow? Not physically, Gabriel explained. They're designed to create a spectral projection when properly aligned and activated. Rias examined Heaven's crystal star and the underworld's obsidian triangle. The activatio N requires energy from all 3 factions simultaneously, similar to the sealing ritual. Always with the 3 factions together, requirements, Naruto sighed. It's like your ancestors really wanted to force cooperation. That was precisely the intention, Gabriel confirmed. The artifacts were created during a brief period of cooperation following the Great War, when all sides recognized that certain powers were too dangerous to leave uncontrolled. Rainer positioned her bronze amulet between the other 2 pieces, forming a triangle. Shall we? The 3 women placed their hands on their respective artifacts. Channeling power, light, darkness, and twilight energies swirled together above the table, coalescing into a 3-dimensional map that hovered in the air. Naruto leaned forward, studying the spectral projection. It looks like mountains. And that structure there, the convergence point, Gabriel identified it, an ancient temple built into the side of a mountain, archite. Natural elements from all 3 supernatural races evident in its design. Where the dimensional barriers were first established. Rias frowned, recognizing the location. That's in the Himalayas, one of the most remote regions on Earth. Deliberately so, Rainer added. Far from the territories any faction claimed during the Great War. How do we get there? Naruto asked practically. Teleportation would be the obvious answer. Rias began, but dimensional magic near the convergence point might be unstable, Gabriel finished. Especially with the barriers weakening. We'll need to travel conventionally for the final approach, Rainer concluded. Fly in under our own power. Naruto crossed his arms. Small problem with that plan. I don't have wings. The 3 women exchanged glances. A silent communication passing between them. I could carry you, Gabriel offered. As could I, Rias added quickly. Rainer smirked. I believe I have the most experience maneuvering with passengers. Naruto sensed another layer of tension forming. Or I could use my 6-path sage mode to fly on my own, he suggested diplomatically. That would be preferable, Gabriel agreed, though Naruto thought he detected a hint of disappointment in her tone. We should depart immediately. The map indicates the convergence point is most accessible at dawn, which gives us approximately 12 hours to reach the Himalayas and locate the temple, Rias calculated. We'll need supplies, Rainer pointed out. The temple may require an extended ritual to re-establish the barriers. The Grigori family can provide whatever we need, Rias assured them. I've already made arrangements. Naruto nodded. Decision made. All right, we teleport as close as safely possible, then make the final approach at dawn. He looked between the 3 women who would accompany him. Just the 4 of us. The fewer beings present, the less chance of factional politics interfering, Gabriel reasoned. And the foe of us have already demonstrated our ability to channel the necessary energies together. Besides, Rainer added with a meaningful glance at her fellow supernatural beings, we 3 represent the highest echelons of our respective factions. Any additional personnel would be redundant. Rias formed a transportation circle. My brother has arranged for supplies and transportation to be waiting at a location in Nepal. From there, we make our approach to the mountains. As they stepped onto the circle, Naruto couldn't help but feel that beyond the imminent threat to multiple dimensions, nothing else was developing between the 4 of them. A complex dynamic he couldn't quite define, but that crackled with potential and tension. The library vanished in a flash of crimson light. Al greeted them with breathtaking mountain vistas and thin, crisp air. They materialized at a remote outpost that bore the subtle markings of supernatural ownership, a safe house maintained by an Alia, NCE of the three factions for rare joint operations. A rugged all-terrain vehicle waited outside, loaded with supplies. The sun was setting behind the towering peaks, painting the snow-capped mountains in hues of gold and pink. "We'll rest here tonight," Rias decided, surveying the basic but comfortable interior of the outpost. "The approach to the convergence point will require all our strength." No one argued. The battle against the manifestation had drained them all, particularly the three supernatural women who had channeled massive amounts of power. The outpost had 2 bedrooms, a common area with a fireplace, and basic kitchen facilities. Naruto immediately volunteered to take the common room floor, averting another potential source of tension. As evening settled over the mountains, they gathered around a simple meal prepared from the supplies. The atmosphere was strangely domestic, 4 powerful beings sharing food in a remote cabin, the fate of multiple dimensions hanging in the balance. "Tell us about your world, Naruto," Gabriel requested as they ate. "You've seen much of ours, but we know little of yours." Naruto described Konoha, the Ninja Alliance, the recent war, and his friends. As he spoke of Sasuke, Sakura, Kakashi, and others, he realized with a pang how much he missed them, and how worried they must be about his disappearance. "They sound like good people," Rias observed. "You must be anxious to return to them." "Yeah," Naruto admitted, "but not until we've fixed these dimensional barriers. I won't leave a job half-finished." "Noble," Rainer commented, though without her usual sarcasm. "Your world seems younger than ours, less burdened by ancient grudges." "Oh, we have plenty of those," Naruto laughed. "But we're working through them. The war taught us that old hatreds just lead to new ones unless someone breaks the cycle." Gabriel's expression softened, a lesson our world has struggled to learn. "Speaking of which," Naruto ventured, "what's the real story between you three? There's something personal there, beyond faction rivalry." Silence fell over the table. The 3 women exchanged glances, none apparently eager to begin. Finally, Gabriel spoke. "During the final days of the Great War, my brother Michael and Searsx Lucifer, Rias's brother, negotiated a ceasefire that eventually led to the current peace. My family was instrumental in those negotiations." Rias continued. "The Grimoire were among the few devil houses willing to consider peace rather than fighting to the last angel." "And the fallen angels?" Naruto prompted, looking to Rainer. "Were divided," she admitted. "Some, like my father, supported Azazel's peace initiative. Others," she hesitated, "others felt betrayed. They believed we should have pressed our advantage while heaven was weakened by God's death. This created factions within factions," Gabriel explained, "and personal alliances that sometimes transcended traditional boundaries." Naruto sensed they were circling something specific. "And how does that involve you three personally?" Another exchange of glances, then Rias sighed. "During the negotiations, I was still very young, even by devil standards. Gabriel was assigned as a neutral guardian for the devil delegation's children. We formed a friendship," Gabriel said carefully. "Unusual, given our natures." Meanwhile, Rainer continued, "My father was developing a relationship with a human woman, my mother. This created scandal among the Grigori, many of whom still viewed humans as inferior beings. Searsx supported Barakiel's right to pursue his relationship." Rias added, "It was a political move to demonstrate devil commitment to the new accords. And heaven opposed it," Gabriel admitted, regret evident in her voice. "Not all of us, but enough to create tension. We feared the child of such a union might inherit problematic traits from both worlds." Rainer's smile held no warmth. "By problematic traits, she means. They feared I would inherit fallen angel power without the restraint taught in heaven." "They weren't entirely wrong," Rias pointed out. "You haven't exactly been a model of restraint." "And you have," Rainer countered. "Your brother practically handed you the most powerful sacred gear wielder in generations on a silver platter." Tension crackled between them until Gabriel raised a hand. "This is precisely why the barriers required representatives from all three factions to maintain. None of us can fully trust the others." Naruto absorbed this information, seeing the layers of personal and political history intertwined. So you three have history, good and bad, going back to the peace negotiations. More than that, Raynor said, her voice uncharacteristically soft. We were close, for a time. The three of us, meeting in secret while the adults negotiated their grand peace. 3 children from different worlds, Gabriel elaborated, finding common ground while our elders remained mired in suspicion. What happened? Naruto asked, sensing the heart of the tension. Rias stared into her cup. Politics, expectations, reality. My mother was killed, Raynor stated flatly. Human. Who discovered her relationship with my father. I blamed everyone. The Grigori for not protecting her, devils for pushing the relationship as a political symbol, heaven for opposing it in the first place. And we grew apart, Gabriel concluded, returning to our respective worlds, our respective roles. The silence that followed felt heavy with unspoken regrets and might-have-beens. Naruto looked between them, seeing past the facades they presented to the world. The serene angel, the proud devil princess, the manipulative fallen angel. Beneath those masks were 3 beings shaped by forces beyond their control. Bound by a shared history both bitter and sweet. Maybe that's why you 3 were drawn into this situation, he suggested quietly. Maybe repairing the dimensional barriers isn't just about sealing rituals and artifacts. Maybe it's about healing other kinds of barriers too. None of them responded directly, but something in the atmosphere shifted, a subtle acknowledgement of his words. We should rest, Gabriel finally said, rising from the table. Tomorrow will test us all. As they prepared for sleep, Naruto found himself reflecting on the complex web of relationships he'd stumbled into. What had begun as a simple investigation of strange energy had become a journey into the heart of supernatural politics, ancient rivalries, and personal connections both strained and resilient. You have a talent for landing in complicated situations, Kurama observed within his mindscape. Tell me about it, Naruto thought back. Though I'm starting to think there's a reason I ended up here. With these specific people, the universe rarely operates on coincidence, the Nine Tails agreed. Be cautious, Naruto. Tomorrow's ritual may require more than just chakra and sealing techniques. With that cryptic warning, Kurama retreated deeper into Naruto's consciousness, leaving the shinobi to settle onto his makeshift bed in the common room, the crackling fire casting dancing shadows across the walls as outside, the Himalayan winds whispered secrets of their own. Dawn arrived with crystalline clarity, the first rays of sunlight striking the snow-capped peaks like divine fire. Naruto stood outside the outpost, breathing deeply of the thin mountain air as he centered himself for the day ahead. Gabriel joined him, her white dress replaced by more practical attire, though still predominantly white. Befitting an angel. You're up early, she observed. Ninja habit, Naruto replied with a small smile. Always wake before the sun. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the mountains emerge from darkness into light. About last night, Gabriel began, her voice soft. What you said about healing barriers between us. She hesitated. It's not as simple as good intentions. Few things worth doing are simple, Naruto responded. But after yesterday's battle, you 3 proved you can work together when it matters. Gabriel's blue eyes studied him with ancient wisdom. You've experienced darkness yourself, haven't you? Beyond what you've told us. Naruto nodded, thinking of his childhood isolation, of Sasuke's betrayal, of the many losses during the war. Yeah, but I've learned that hanging on to past hurts just creates new ones. Wisdom beyond your years, Gabriel commented. Perhaps that's why. The outpost door opened as Rias and Raynor emerged. Both also dressed for mountain travel. Whatever Gabriel had been about to say remained unspoken. The map indicates the convergence point is approximately 4 hours' journey from here, Rias announced, consulting a spectral projection hovering above her palm. We should depart immediately to reach it by mid-morning. The all-terrain vehicle carried them as far as the mountain roads allowed, after which they continued on foot. For Naruto, the rugged terrain presented little challenge. Ninja training had prepared him for far worse conditions. The 3 supernatural women likewise demonstrated no difficulty. Their inhuman strength and endurance evident despite their decision to conserve power by walking rather than flying. As they ascended, the air grew thinner and the landscape more barren. Naruto noticed that the higher they climbed, the more the very fabric of reality seemed to waver around them, subtle distortions in the air, like heat mirages but more structured. We're getting close, Gabriel confirmed. Noticing his observation, the convergence point affects the space around it. I can feel it, Raynor added, her violet eyes tracking the distortions. Like pressure against my wings. Even when they're hidden. They rounded a massive boulder, and suddenly it appeared before them, a structure built directly into the mountainside, its architecture an impossible blend of heavenly spires, demonic fortifications, and the fluid, organic forms favored by fallen angels. The entire temple shimmered with an opalescent energy that made it difficult to focus on directly. The convergence point, Rias breathed, awe evident in her voice despite her usual composure. I've seen illustrations in ancient texts, but they don't capture its true nature, Gabriel finished. No static image could. As they approached, Naruto felt a resonance within his chakra, similar to what he'd experienced at the Uzumaki shrine, but magnified 100-fold. Kurama stirred restlessly within him. This place, it holds power similar to the Sage of Six Paths, the Nine Tails observed. A nexus where fundamental forces converge. The entrance to the temple was sealed by a massive door bearing symbols from all three supernatural factions, arranged in a pattern that made Naruto's eyes hurt if he tried to follow it completely. Another three-faction lock, he guessed. Naturally, Raynor confirmed with a hint of her usual sarcasm. Heaven forbid anything in our world be straightforward. The three women positioned themselves before the door, Gabriel in the center, Rias to her right, Raynor to her left. Each placed a hand on a specific symbol matching their faction. From light we came, Gabriel intoned, her hand glowing with divine energy. Through darkness we found form, Rias continued, crimson power flowing from her palm. In twilight we discovered choice, Raynor completed, her energy a swirling mixture of light and shadow. The door responded, ancient mechani. SMS rumbling to life as the symbols began to rotate and realign. With a final pulse of combined energy, it swung open, revealing a corridor that descended into the heart of the mountain. Well, that was dramatic, Naruto commented, earning small smiles from his companions. They entered cautiously, magical lights activating as they passed, illuminating a path that spiraled downward. The walls were covered in intricate carvings depicting what appeared to be the history of the three factions, their creation, their conflicts, and finally, the establishment of the dimensional barriers. Look, Naruto pointed to a section of carving that showed human figures working alongside supernatural beings. These could be Uzumaki seal masters. Rias examined the carvings closely. The style of their clothing is consistent with historical depictions of ancient Eastern cultures. And these spiral symbols they're wearing. The Uzumaki clan crest, Naruto confirmed. So my ancestors really did help create the dimensional barriers. They continued downward, the spiral path eventually opening into a vast circular chamber at the mountain's heart. At its center stood a raised dais surrounded by three altars, white marble, black obsidian, and gray granite, forming a triangle around a central pillar of crystal that reached from floor to ceiling. The nexus, Gabriel identified it with reverence. Where the barriers were born. Naruto approached the central pillar, sensing the immense power contained within. The crystal was clear near its base but gradually darkened toward the ceiling, where it appeared almost completely black. That doesn't look good, he observed, pointing to the darkening. Is it supposed to be like that? No, Rias moved to one of the ancient consoles near the obsidian altar. According to these readings, the pillar should be uniformly transparent, allowing energy to flow freely between dimensions without allowing physical transfer. The corruption is spreading, Raynor concluded, examining similar instruments near the granite altar. Trihex's influence has penetrated deeper than we realized. As if triggered by her words, the chamber trembled, dust falling from the ancient ceiling. The crystal pillar pulsed with malevolent energy, darkness spreading visibly downward. We need to begin the ritual immediately, Gabriel decided, moving to the marble altar. Rias, Raynor, take your positions. The three women assumed places at their respective altars, while Naruto stood uncertain near the central dais. What's my role in this? He asked. The mortal vessel, Gabriel explained quickly as she prepared her altar. You must stand at the center, on the dais. Your chakra, your Uzumaki heritage, will serve as the conduit through which our powers can properly align. Naruto nodded, stepping onto the raised platform. Immediately, he felt a connection to the crystal pillar, as if invisible threads were linking his chakra to the ancient structure. Be careful, Kurama warned. This place is drawing on your chakra already. The ritual will demand even more. I can handle it, Naruto assured him, then addressed the others. What do I need to do? Channel your chakra into the pillar. Rias instructed, her hands already glowing with power. We'll provide the specific energies needed to reforge the barriers, but you must shape and direct them. Another tremor shook the chamber. Stronger this time. Cracks appeared in the floor around the dais. Something's wrong, Rainer called out, violet eyes tracking the spreading darkness in the crystal. The corruption is accelerating. The pillar pulsed again, and this time a voice echoed through the chamber, the same psychic pressure they had felt from the manifestation, but stronger, more focused. Your efforts are futile. The vessel is insufficient. Dark tendrils of energy began to seep from the cracks in the floor, reaching toward Naruto like hungry serpents. Begin the ritual now, Gabriel commanded, her 12 wings manifesting as she channeled heavenly power into her altar. Rias and Rainer followed suit, their respective energies flowing toward the central dais where Naruto stood. He felt their power reaching him, waiting to be shaped and directed. Drawing on his experience with sealing techniques, Naruto formed the hand signs he had seen in the carvings above. 6 paths sealing technique. Dimensional barrier restoration. Golden chakra erupted from him, meeting the 3 streams of energy from the altars. For a moment, it seemed to be working, the combined power flowing into the crystal pillar, pushing back the darkness. Then something shifted. The corruption in the crystal seemed to concentrate, focusing its resistance against their efforts. The dark tendrils on the floor multiplied, surging toward the dais. Your bloodline is diluted, your connection weakened by generations. You cannot complete the seal alone. What's it talking about? Naruto called out, struggling to maintain the flow of chakra against the increasing resistance. Gabriel's expression showed rare alarm. The original ritual, it required multiple Uzumaki seal masters working in concert. Their calm, bind bloodline power created a seal strong enough to contain Trihex's influence. But I'm the only Uzumaki here, Naruto realized, the implications sinking in. My chakra alone isn't enough. Another violent tremor shook the chamber. Pieces of the ceiling began to fall, narrowly missing them. We need to abort, Rias decided, preparing to withdraw her power. Regroup and find another solution. No, Rainer shouted, surprising them all with her vehemence. If we stop now, the corruption will break through completely. We won't get another chance. But without sufficient Uzumaki power, the seal won't hold, Gabriel countered. Though she maintained her energy flow, Naruto's mind raced, searching for a solution. The chamber continued to degrade around them, the corruption in the crystal now more than halfway down the pillar. Naruto, Kurama's voice cut through his racing thoughts. Remember what the sage taught you about sharing chakra. Understanding dawned. I need more Uzumaki power, Naruto called out. But maybe I can create it myself. Before anyone could question him, Naruto formed a familiar hand sign. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Dozens of perfect copies of himself appeared, filling the chamber around the dais. Each clone contained a portion of his chakra, his Uzumaki heritage multiplied. Everyone, channel your chakra into the pillar. Naruto commanded his clones. Form the sealing pattern. The clones moved with perfect coordination, each taking a position in a complex geometric pattern around the dais. They began channeling chakra simultaneously, golden energy flowing from multiple sources into the central pillar. It's working, Gabriel called out, seeing the darkness in the crystal recede slightly. But the entity within wasn't surrendering easily. Dark tendrils lashed out, dispelling several clones on contact. The chamber shook more violently, larger chunks of ceiling crashing down. You cannot defeat me with mere copies. I am eternal. I am really annoying. Naruto cut off the entity's pronouncement. And I'm not done yet. He reached deeper, accessing the unique chakra he had received from the Sage of 6 Paths. 6 Paths Sage Mode. Power erupted from him, his form glowing with energy that combined aspects of Sage Chakra, Kurama's power, and the unique gifts of the Sage. His remaining clones transformed as well, each now radiating the same transcendent energy. The 3 women stared in amazement as Naruto's power level shifted to something beyond what they had witnessed before. a golden aura with truth-seeking orbs floating behind him. His eyes transformed to a cross-shaped pattern. Now, Naruto commanded, everyone, full power. Gabriel, Rias, and Rainer channeled everything they had into their respective altars. The Ombeamed energy of 3 supernatural factions merged with Naruto's enhanced chakra, flowing into the crystal pillar in a blinding display of power. The darkness retreated rapidly, forced upward as the crystal purified from bottom to top. The entity's psychic voice held in rage and frustration as its influence was systematically pushed back. This is not the end. I will find another way. Another vessel. Another. Its voice cut off as the final portion of corruption was expelled from the pillar. The crystal now glowed with pure light, pulsing with the combined energies of all present. The final seal. Gabriel called out, Naruto. Now, drawing on the last reserves of his and his clone's chakra, Naruto formed the ultimate sealing sign, a technique passed down from the Sage of Six Paths himself. Six Paths' ultimate sealing technique, Eternal Barrier. Golden chains of pure chakra erupted from him and his clones, wrapping around the crystal pillar in an intricate pattern. Where they touched, they left permanent marks, sealing formulas that glowed with inner light. The chamber stabilized, the tremors ceasing. The cracks in the floor sealed themselves, the fallen debris dissolving into particles of light that were absorbed into the newly reinforced barriers. One by one, Naruto's clones dispelled, their chakra spent. As the last disappeared, he fell to his knees on the dais, exhausted but triumphant. We did it, he managed, looking up at the now gleaming crystal pillar. The barriers are restored. Gabriel, Rias, and Rainer approached, their own power depleted but faces showing relief and something more, a newfound respect for the shinobi from another dimension. That was, Rias began. Incredible, Rainer finished, genuine admiration in her voice. Gabriel knelt beside Naruto, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. You've accomplished what we thought impossible. The dimensional barriers are stronger now than they've been in centuries. Naruto attempted to stand, wobbled, and found himself supported by all 3 women, each reaching out instinctively to steady him. Thanks, he said with a tired grin. I guess using Six Paths mode with that many clones was a bit much. A bit, Rainer arched an eyebrow. You rewrote the fundamental structure of reality while fighting off an eldritch abomination. I'd say you've earned some rest. As they helped him from the dais, Naruto noticed something had changed between them. The tension that had characterized their interactions had transformed into something more harmonious, if not entirely resolved. So, he asked as they made their way back toward the spiral path leading up, does this mean the 3 of you are friends again? The women exchanged glances over his head. Friends might be an oversimplification, Rias said diplomatically. But perhaps, colleagues with a shared history, Gabriel added. Who occasionally don't want to kill each other, Rainer finished with a hint of her old smirk, though lacking its usual edge. Naruto laughed, the sound echoing through the ancient chamber. I'll take it as progress. As they ascended toward the surface, leaving the convergence point secure behind them, one of them noticed the smallest flicker of darkness that remained within the crystal pillar, a seed of corruption, dormant but not destroyed, waiting for its moment to grow once more. The journey back to the outpost was made in companionable silence, each lost in their own thoughts about what they had witnessed and accomplished. Naruto's strength returned gradually, though he still leaned on Hoover happened to be closest when the path grew particularly steep. By the time they reached the cabin, night had fallen again, the stars impossibly bright in the clear mountain air. Exhaustion claimed them quickly, conversation minimal as they prepared for sleep. Morning brought a sense of completion, and the question of what came next. The dimensional barriers are secured, Gabriel noted as they shared a simple breakfast. Which means you could return to your world now, Naruto. The statement hung in the air, laden with implications. Naruto considered it, feeling both the pull of his Homa and an unexpected reluctance to leave this strange new reality and the connections he'd formed. I should go back, he acknowledged. People will be worried about me. And I have responsibilities there. Of course, Rias agreed, though her tone suggested she was less than enthusiastic about the prospect. We can open a passage for you at the Uzumaki shrine where you first arrived. Although, Rainer interjected, examining her nails with studied casualness, the barriers would benefit from periodic maintenance. Someone with your unique abilities would be invaluable for that task. Naruto looked between the three women, seeing what remained unspoken in their expressions. Are you suggesting I could visit? Travel between worlds? With the barriers properly reinforced, controlled passages could be established. Gabriel explained. Similar to the transportation circles devils use between realms, but adapted for cross-dimensional travel. You could return to your world, Rias elaborated, but maintain connections to ours. Perhaps even serve as an official liaison between dimensions. A role that would naturally require regular contact with representatives from all three factions. Rainer added with a meaningful glance at her counterparts. Naruto couldn't help but smile at their transparent attempt to create a framework for continued interaction. I'd like that, he admitted. My world could benefit from knowledge exchange with yours. And I've grown kind of attached to this crazy place with its angels, devils, and fallen angels. Relief visibly passed through all three women, though each tried to mask it in her own way. Then it's settled, Gabriel concluded. We'll establish a formal dimensional passage at the Uzumaki Shrine location. The Grimoire family can provide the necessary magical infrastructure on our side, Rias offered. And the Grigori will contribute our expertise in cross-realm travel. Rainer completed the triangle of cooperation. As they finalized the details of his return journey and future visits, Naruto reflected on the strange turn his life had taken. What had begun as a simple investigation of unusual energy had led to dimensional travel, world-saving heroics, and connections with three extraordinary women from supernatural factions. You certainly know how to complicate your life, Kurama observed dryly within his mindscape. Would you have it any other way? Naruto replied mentally. The Nine-Tails' rumbling laughter was answer enough. The Uzumaki Shrine looked exactly as Naruto had left it, ruins half reclaimed by nature. Ancient stones bearing the faded spiral symbol of his clan. But now, with his new knowledge, he could see what he had missed before, subtle markings that matched elements of the dimensional seals he had studied in the supernatural world. Your ancestors left their mark, Gabriel observed as they examined the shrine. They must have traveled between worlds regularly during the barrier's creation. Which means I'm not the first Uzumaki to form connections with your world, Naruto noted, finding comfort in this link to his heritage. The three faction representatives had worked together to prepare the dimensional passage, a permanent gateway that would allow controlled travel between worlds. Unlike the unstable tear Naruto had stumbled through initially, this would be safe and directional. E-passage is keyed to your chakra signature, Rias explained, showing him the activation sequence. Only you can open it from either side. Think of it as a door with your unique lock, Rainer added. One that connects our worlds in a controlled manner. As the final preparations were completed, the moment of departure arrived. Naruto stood before the newly established portal, facing the 3W Omen who had become so important to him in such a short time. I guess this is goodbye for now, he said, feeling unexpectedly emotional. But not for long. Gabriel stepped forward first, her serene beauty enhanced by genuine warmth in her eyes. Your assistance has been invaluable, Naruto Uzumaki. Heaven recognizes the debt we owe you. She hesitated, then did something unexpected. She leaned forward and placed a gentle kiss on his cheek. Safe journey. Rias approached next, her crimson hair catching the afternoon sunlight. The Grimoire family, and devil kind as a whole, won't forget what you've done. Her kiss landed closer to the corner of his mouth, lingering just a moment longer than Gabriel's had. Until we meet again. Rainer was last, violet eyes gleaming with their usual calculation, but also with something more genuine. Don't stay away too long, Naruto. Some of us might actually miss your heroics and irritating optimism. Her kiss was bold, landing directly on his lips with characteristic fallen angel audacity. I hate boring goodbyes, she explained with a smirk as she pulled away. Naruto felt his face heating, but managed a confident grin. I'll be back before you know it. After all, dimensional barriers don't maintain themselves. With final farewells exchanged, he activated the portal. Light swirled around him, reminiscent of his first journey but controlled, directed. See you soon, he called as the supernatural world began to fade from view. The last thing he saw before the light engulfed him completely was the three of them standing together, angel, devil, and fallen angel. united by their connection to him and the shared experience of saving multiple worlds. As he traveled through the dimensional passage, Naruto couldn't help but wonder what awaited him on future visits. The political landscape of the three factions was changing, influenced by their unprecedented cooperation. And his relationships with Gabriel, Rias, and Reiner were evolving in ways he hadn't anticipated. One thing was certain: life had just become considerably more interesting for Konoha's #1 unpredictable ninja. The light faded, and Naruto found himself standing in the familiar ruins of the Uzumaki Shrine. Back in his own world, the afternoon sun filtered through the trees just as it had when he'd left, though he suspected more time had passed here than he realized. Home again, Kurama noted. For now, Naruto agreed aloud, touching the newly created seal mark on his palm, his key to the passage between worlds. With a last look at the shrine, he turned and began the journey back to Konoha, already planning when he might make his first return visit to the world of angels, devils, and fallen angels, and the three extraordinary women awaiting him there. Chapter 2 End. Chapter 3. Divine Convergence. Kakashi stood at Konoha's gates, visible eye narrowed in concentration as he studied the figure approaching on the forest path. Orange and black clothing, spiky blonde hair, that unmistakable confident gait. After 2 weeks of village-wide concern, Naruto Uzumaki was finally returning. "You're late," Kakashi called out when Naruto came within earshot, masking relief with his typical nonchalance. Naruto grinned, rubbing the back of his head. "Sorry about that. Got sucked into another dimension. You wouldn't believe the week I've had." "Try me," Kakashi replied dryly. "The Anbu search teams couldn't find a trace of you after you visited that old shrine. Sakura's been threatening to level the forest looking for you, and Tsunade-sama has been in a worse mood than usual." As they walked through the village gates, Naruto noticed the subtle tension in his former sensei's shoulders. "You were worried." "Naturally. It's not every day strongest shinobi vanishes without a trace." Kakashi glanced sideways at him. "So, another dimension." Naruto nodded, the reality of being home finally sinking in. The familiar sights and sounds of Konoha, merchants calling their wares, children running through the streets, the distant clang of practice from the training grounds, felt simultaneously strange and comforting after his time in the supernatural world. Yeah, a world with angels, devils, and fallen angels. Had to help them fix some dimensional barriers that were breaking down. He held up his palm, showing the intricate seal mark T. Had served as his key to the passage between worlds. "Got this as a souvenir. Lets me travel back and forth now." Kakashi studied the mark, his interest clearly piqued despite his casual demeanor. "Interesting. I assume there's a much longer version of this story." "Much longer," Naruto confirmed. "And weirder than you'd think. Save it for the official report," Kakashi advised as they approached the Hokage Tower. "You'll only have to tell it once that way." Inside the Hokage's office, Tsunade's reaction to Naruto's return ran the expected emotional gamut, relief quickly giving way to anger, followed by medical concern, and finally settling into wary fascination as he recounted his interdimensional adventure. "Let me get this straight," she said when he finished, fingers steepled before her. "You found a dimensional tear, got pulled into a world of supernatural beings, helped them fight off manifestations of a sealed primordial beast, discovered your Uzumaki ancestors helped create the barriers between dimensions, and established yourself as a dimensional liaison with the ability to travel between worlds at will." "That about covers it," Naruto confirmed. Tsunade sighed deeply. "Only you, Naruto. Only you could turn investigating strange energy into an interdimensional diplomatic position." Shizune, standing at Tsunade's side, looked both impressed and concerned. "These beings, these angels, devils, and fallen angels, are they a threat to our world?" "Not anymore," Naruto assured her. "The barriers are stable now, and they're not interested in invasion. They have enough problems managing their own realms. And these three women," Tsunade fixed him with a penetrating gaze, "Gabriel, Rias, and Reiner. You've formed connections with them." Naruto felt a flush creeping up his neck. "They're important representatives of their factions. And yeah, we worked well together." Tsunade's knowing look suggested she understood more than he was saying. "Well, diplomatic. Relations with other dimensions falls outside our normal protocols. Consider yourself the official Konoha ambassador to this supernatural world. You'll report directly to Kakashi and me regarding any developments. Relief washed over Naruto. He hadn't been sure how Tsunade would react to his newfound ability to travel between worlds. Thanks, Ba-chan. Don't thank me yet, she warned. I expect detailed reports after each visit. And Naruto. Her expression softened slightly. Be careful. Other worlds mean other rules, other dangers. I know, he nodded seriously. But also other allies. As he left the Hokage Tower, the afternoon sun warm on his face, Naruto felt the comfortable weight of being home, and the exciting pull of knowing he could return to the supernatural world whenever needed. First, though, he had friends to reassure. You idiot. Sakura's punch sent him flying across the training ground, landing in an ungraceful heap against a tree trunk. 2 weeks. Not a word, not a sign. Do you have any idea how worried everyone was? Naruto picked himself up, wincing. No matter how powerful he became, Sakura could still knock him senseless when properly motivated. I said I was sorry. It's not like I planned to get sucked into another dimension. Sakura advanced on him, fist raised for another blow, then suddenly stopped, her anger crumbling into relief. She pulled him into a tight hug instead. Don't ever disappear like that again. Can't breathe. Naruto gasped, though he returned the hug with equal fervor. When she released him, Sai and Yamato approached, both wearing expressions of relief mingled with curiosity. Another dimension, Sai repeated, his usual emotionless facade cracking slightly to reveal genuine interest. With supernatural beings. Fascinating. Were these angels as beautiful as legends suggest? Yamato asked with a teasing glint in his eye. Naruto thought of Gabriel's radiant perfection, Rias's crimson elegance, and Rainer's dangerous allure. Yeah, they were impressive. Oh, Sakura's eyebrow rose. Sounds like you made some interesting friends. It wasn't like that, Naruto protested, though his reddening ears betrayed him. We were focused on fixing the dimensional barriers and fighting off corruption. Of course, Sai agreed with his fake smile. I've read that men often form strong bonds with female co-emrades during life-threatening situations. It's a natural response to, anyway. Naruto interrupted loudly. What have I missed here? Any exciting missions? Village gossip? Ichiraku specials? The conversation thankfully shifted to Konoha news, though Naruto caught Sakura studying him thoughtfully throughout their reunion. She had always been perceptive about matters of the heart, sometimes annoyingly so. Later, as evening settled over the village and the team parted ways, she held him back with a gentle hand on his arm. These women, she said quietly. They're important to you already, aren't they? Naruto considered denying it, then sighed. Yeah, it's complicated. They're from different factions with centuries of conflict between them. But when we worked together, he trailed off, struggling to articulate the connection he'd felt. Sakura nodded, understanding in her green eyes. Just be careful, Naruto. Interdimensional relationships sound even more complicated than regular ones. He laughed. Tell me about it. But don't worry, I'm just the liaison between worlds. Professional diplomatic stuff. Right, Sakura replied, clearly unconvinced. Because you're so well known for keeping things professional and diplomatic. As he watched her walk away, Naruto touched the seal mark on his palm, feeling the subtle pulse of energy connecting him to the other world. Despite his MPTS to downplay the situation to his friends, he knew Sakura was right. His connections to Gabriel, Rias, and Rainer had already grown beyond mere diplomatic relations. The question was, what would happen when he returned? 1 week after his return to Konoha, Naruto stood once more before the ruins of the Uzumaki Shrine. He'd spent the intervening days reacclimating to village life, filing his official report, which Kakashi had read with barely concealed fascination, and training to maintain his edge. But the seal on his palm had grown increasingly warm, suggesting activity on the other side of the dimensional passage. Channeling chakra into the mark, Naruto activated the portal. Light swirled before him, coalescing into a doorway between worlds. Taking a deep breath, he stepped through. The transition was smoother this time, controlled rather than chaotic. He emerged in a chamber he didn't recognize, an elegant room with high ceilings and walls lined with books, illuminated by floating crystals that cast a warm golden light. "Welcome back, Naruto Uzumaki," Gabriel's voice greeted him. She stood near a large window that revealed a view of clouds and distant spires shimmering with divine light. Her 12 wings were unfurled in their full glory, her white dress seeming to radiate its own gentle luminescence. "Gabriel," Naruto smiled, genuinely pleased to see her. "This is heaven," she nodded, moving closer. "My personal study within the 7th heaven. I thought you might appreciate seeing more of our world during your visits." "It's beautiful," Naruto admitted, talking in the serene grandeur of his surroundings. "Different from what I expected, though. Most human conceptions of heaven are simplified," Gabriel explained with a small smile. "The reality is more complex, more personal." "Like most things," Naruto agreed. He noticed subtle tension in her posture despite her welcoming demeanor. "Is everything okay? The seal on my palm has been getting warmer." Gabriel's expression grew more serious. "There have been developments since your departure. Small tears have continued to appear, though nothing like before. We've been able to seal them without difficulty. But their persistence is concerning. I thought we fixed the barriers at the convergence point," Naruto frowned. "As did we," Gabriel sighed. "But something remains amiss. Michael believes some fragment of corruption may have survived, too small for us to detect during the ritual." Naruto's mind flashed to the moment of their apparent victory, wondering if they had missed something crucial. "Have you consulted with Rias and Rainer about this? We've established a communication protocol between factions," Gabriel explained. "But tensions have begun to re-emerge. Without the immediate crisis to unite us, old habits die hard," Naruto finished for her. "Where are they now?" "Rias has returned to her duties in the underworld. Rainer," Gabriel hesitated, "has been uncharacteristically quiet. The Grigori reports she's engaged in personal research." Something in her tone caught Naruto's attention. "You're worried about her?" Gabriel turned to the window, her wings shifting slightly in what Naruto was learning to recognize as discomfort. "Rainer has always been unpredictable. Her revelation as a 12-winged fallen angel has created ripples throughout the supernatural world. Some fear her agenda may not align with Azazel's peaceful policies. But you don't believe that," Naruto guessed, studying her profile. "I want to believe in the connection we re-established during our time together," Gabriel admitted, showing rare uncertainty. "But centuries of distrust aren't easily overcome." Naruto moved to stand beside her at the window. "In my world, I've seen enemies become allies, even friends. People who tried to kill each other fighting side by side against greater threats. Change is possible." Gabriel turned to him, her blue eyes searching his. "Your optimism is refreshing, Naruto." "Perhaps that's why." She trailed off, then seemed to reconsider her words. "Perhaps that's why your presence has been so catalytic for our world." "I should check on them," Naruto decided. "Visit the underworld, then find Rainer. If these tears are continuing, we need to present a united front again." Gabriel nodded, though Naruto detected something like disappointment in her expression. "Of course, your role as liaison makes you uniquely positioned to maintain connections between factions. But first," Naruto added quickly, "I'd like to see more of heaven, if that's okay." "Since I'm here already," her smile returned, genuine warmth replacing diplomatic composure. "I would be honored to show you." The tour of heaven's accessible regions revealed a realm of breathtaking beauty and serene power. Gabriel explained the structure of the celestial hierarchy, the different functions of various heavens, and the nature of angelic existence. Naruto found himself fascinated by the differences and similarities to his own conceptions of the afterlife. "So humans who die virtuously can come here?" he asked as they walked through a garden where the flowers seemed composed of living light. "Many do," Gabriel confirmed, "though the system is more complex than most human religions suggest. Intent matters as much as action, and the capacity for growth continues beyond mortal life." "That's a relief," Naruto grinned. "Some of the best people I know started out as real troublemakers." "Including yourself?" Gabriel asked with gentle amusement. "Especially me." Saint ask anyone in Konoha about the Great Monument graffiti incident. Gabriel's laughter was like music, a sound so pure it seemed to make the garden's luminous flowers pulse brighter in response. to found himself captivated by her in this moment of unguarded joy, so different from her usual serene composure. "You are unlike anyone I've encountered in my long existence, Naruto Uzumaki," she said when her laughter subsided. "Most beings approach angels with either reverence or hostility. You treat me as, simply Gabriel. That's who you are to me," Naruto replied honestly. "Sure, you're an impressive 12-winged seraph and all that, but you're also just, you." Something shifted in her expression, a softening, a vulnerability rarely displayed by such a powerful being. She moved closer, her hand hesitantly reaching to touch his face. "In all my centuries," she said softly, "few have seen past the angel to the being beneath. You did so immediately." The moment hung between them, charged with unspoken potential. Naruto found himself leaning slightly toward her, drawn by something more profound than her celestial beauty. A chime interrupted them, a communication signal from elsewhere in heaven. Gabriel stepped back, composure returning though her eyes remained warm. "Michael requires my attention," she explained, regret evident in her voice. "Likely regarding the continued dimensional disturbances." Naruto nodded, both disappointed and relieved by the interruption. Whatever was developing between them deserved more time, more understanding than this brief moment allowed. "I should continue my liaison duties anyway," he said. "Check in with Rias in the underworld." Gabriel created a transportation circle for him, golden white rather than the crimson of devil magic. "T.S. will take you directly to the Grimoire estate. I've arranged it with Circex." As Naruto prepared to step onto the circle, Gabriel moved forward and, with gentle boldness that surprised him, placed a kiss on his cheek. "Until next time, Naruto Uzumaki," she said softly. "Heaven is brighter for your visit." The transportation magic activated, heaven dissolving around him in golden light. As he traveled between realms, Naruto touched his cheek where the warmth of Gabriel's kiss lingered, wondering at the complexity of feeling growing within him. The Grimoire estate materialized around him, He Grand Hall where he had first met Circex. Unlike his arrival in heaven, he wasn't immediately greeted. In fact, the hall seemed unusually quiet, lacking the devil servants who had previously been ever present. "Hello," Naruto called, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. A figure emerged from a side corridor, not Rias or Circex, but Graphia, her silver hair and maid uniform immaculate as ever. "Naruto Uzumaki," she greeted with a formal bow. "We received word of your arrival from heaven. Welcome back to the underworld." "Thanks," Naruto replied, noticing the subtle tension in her normally composed features. "Is everything okay? Where is everyone?" "Lord Circex is attending an emergency council of the four great Satans," Graphia explained. "Lady Rias is in her study. If you'll follow me." As they walked through the mansion's ornate corridors, Naruto sensed something amiss. These dimensional disturbances Gabriel mentioned, they're worse than she let on, aren't they? Graphia glanced at him, approval flickering in her eyes at his perception. "Yes. While the main barriers remain intact, minor tears have appeared with increasing frequency. Some devils believe," she hesitated, then continued with diplomatic caution. "Some believe the tears are being deliberately triggered." "By who?" Naruto asked, alarmed. "That is the question currently being debated by the four great Satans." They reached an intricately carved door, which Graphia opened to reveal a study similar in size to Gabriel's but with distinctly different aesthetics, rich crimson and black dominated, with artifacts of obvious power displayed in glass cases along the walls. Rias sat at a massive desk, surrounded by ancient texts and magical monitoring devices. She looked up as they entered, fatigue evident in her features despite her attempt to mask it with a welcoming smile. "Naruto." She rose, genuine pleasure breaking through her exhaustion. "Your timing is impeccable as always. I'll leave you to your discussions." Graphia bowed and departed, closing the door behind her. Once alone, Rias's formal demeanor softened. She moved around the desk and, to Naruto's surprise, embraced him warmly. "It's good to see you." "You too," he replied, returning the embrace before stepping back to study her more carefully. "But you look like you haven't slept in days." "Perceptive," she acknowledged, just urging for him to sit in one of the plush chairs near a fireplace where crimson flames burned without consuming the wood. "The situation has become complicated since you left." Naruto took the offered seat, Rias settling across from him. Gabriel mentioned continued tears. Graphia suggested someone might be causing them deliberately. Rias nodded grimly. Small tears have appeared throughout the realms, in devil territory, angelic domains, fallen angel strongholds, and human cities. Each is manageable alone, but the pattern suggests purpose, not random degradation. Someone's testing the barriers, Naruto realized. Probing for weaknesses. Exactly. And using our factional divisions to their advantage. Rias leaned forward, her blue-green eyes intense. When a tier appears in devil territory, only devils respond. The same for the other factions. We're being kept separate, forced to expend resources individually rather than combining forces. Divide and conquer, Naruto muttered. Classic strategy. Any ideas who's behind it? Rias hesitated, conflict evident in her expression. There are suspicions. The timing of certain events has raised questions. About Rainer, Naruto guessed, connecting the dots. Because she revealed herself as a 12-winged fallen angel right before we performed the sealing ritual. And has since withdrawn from inter-faction communications, Rias added. The Grigori claims she's engaged in private research, but her movements have been difficult to track. Naruto frowned, remembering Rainer's genuine participation in the ritual, the moment she had set aside her agenda to help save both worlds. I don't believe she's behind this. Your faith in others is admirable, Rias said, though without condescension. And I hope you're right. But fallen angels, especially high-ranking ones, have complex motivations. Rainer kept her true power hidden for centuries. What else might she be concealing? Before Naruto could respond, a communication circle appeared above Rias's desk. Pulsing with urgent energy, she moved quickly to activate it, Searsex's image materializing above the circle. Rias, his normally composed voice carried unusual tension. A major tear has formed at the boundary between the underworld and Grigori territory. Unlike the others, this one is expanding rapidly. We'll depart immediately, Rias replied, already gathering power around herself. Naruto Uzumaki is with me, she added, glancing his way. His sealing abilities may prove crucial. Searsex's expression showed momentary surprise, then relief. Excellent timing. The coordinates are being transmitted to your transportation circle. Be cautious. Preliminary reports indicate unusual energy signatures around this tear. The communication ended, and Rias turned to Naruto. Her battle readiness replacing exhaustion. Are you prepared for this? It could be dangerous, especially if our suspicions about deliberate sabotage are correct. Naruto stood, already channeling chakra in preparation. Lead the way. Dangerous is kind of my specialty. A small, genuine smile curved Rias's lips despite the gravity of the situation. I've missed your confidence. She created a transportation circle beneath them. Stay close to me. The boundary regions between territories can be unstable. The circle activated, the Grimoire study dissolving around them. When reality reformed, they stood on a barren plain beneath the underworld's crimson sky. Before them stretched what appeared to be a vast chasm, though Naruto's enhanced senses detected no bottom, only a transition to a different kind of darkness. The natural boundary between devil and fallen angel territories, Rias explained, following his gaze. Not physical so much as metaphysical, a division in the fabric of the underworld itself. Naruto immediately spotted the problem. A jagged tear in reality hovering above the chasm, pulsing with chaotic energy that reminded him uncomfortably of the corruption. They had fought at the convergence point. Unlike the previous tiers, this one seemed to be bleeding energy into its surroundings, creating visible distortions in the air. That doesn't look good, he observed, already assessing potential approaches. No, it doesn't, a familiar voice agreed from behind them. They turned to find Rainer approaching, her 12 black wings fully manifested, violet eyes fixed on the dimensional tier. She wore battle attire, form-fitting black leather reinforced with what appeared to be magical armor at vital points. Rainer, Rias acknowledged cautiously. The Grigori sent you. In a manner of speaking, Rainer replied, her usual smirk absent, replaced by grim focus. I've been tracking these tiers, studying their pattern. This one is different, stronger, more deliberate. Naruto studied her carefully, looking for any sign of deception. You've been investigating these tiers on your own. Why not coordinate with heaven and the devils? Rainer's eyes met his, Something complex flickering in their violet depths. Because I had a theory I needed to confirm before raising alarms. A theory about their origin. She turned back to the tier. And now I have my confirmation. Care to share with the class? Rias asked dryly, though her power gathered subtly around her hands. Instead of answering directly, Raynor spread her wings wider and launched into the air. Hovering near the tear for a closer examination. It's as I suspected, she called down to them. The energy signature matches what we encountered at the convergence point, but with a specific modulation, a signature I recognize. She descended, landing gracefully before them. These tiers aren't random, and they aren't being created by outside interference. They're being generated from within the barriers themselves. From within, Naruto frowned. How is that possible? We sealed the corruption. Most of it, Raynor corrected. But I suspect a fragment remained, dormant until we departed. Now it's growing, using the barriers, own energy against them. Rias's eyes narrowed. And you discovered this when, exactly? 3 days ago, Raynor admitted. I've been tracking the energy patterns backward, trying to locate the source. Without informing the other factions, Rias noted, suspicion evident in her tone. Tension crackled between the devil and fallen angel, centuries of ingrained distrust threatening to resurface despite their recent cooperation. Enough, Naruto interjected, stepping between them. Whatever your reasons, Raynor, we need to work together now. That tear is growing while we argue. As if responding to his words, the tear pulsed violently, expanding another several feet in all directions. The air around it darkened, corruption beginning to seep through. He's right, Raynor conceded. Accusations can wait. That tear needs to be sealed immediately. Agreed, Rias nodded curtly. Naruto, can you? Her words were cut short as the tear suddenly expanded explosively. Darkness pouring forth like a tidal wave. Naruto reacted instinctively, entering Nine Tails mode in a flash of golden light, chakra arms extending to pull both women behind him as he created a protective barrier. The darkness crashed against his chakra shield, testing its limits. Within the roiling shadows, Naruto detected movement, shapes forming and dissolving, reaching toward them with malevolent purpose. It's trying to manifest again. He called over the howling energies. Like in the human city. Not just trying, Raynor observed grimly, power gathering around her hands. Look, from the tear emerged a figure, humanoid but wrong, its proportions distorted as if viewed through warped glass. It stood 9 feet tall, with features that shifted between angelic, demonic, and fallen. Never settling on a single form. Its eyes, however, remained constant, void black with pinpricks of crimson light at their centers. A herald, Rias identified it, the power of destruction forming around her hands. A manifestation sent ahead to prepare the way for something larger. The herald surveyed them with those unsettling eyes, its gaze lingering on each in turn before settling on Naruto. When it spoke, its voice grated against reality itself, painful to hear. Seal Master, Barrier Breaker, you return as prophesied. Prophesied. Naruto frowned, maintaining his protective barrier. What are you talking about? The herald's mouth stretched in a parody of a smile, revealing teeth like shattered glass. The fragment grows. The master awakens. The cycle continues as it always has. It's stalling, Raynor realized, launching into the air. The tear is still expanding behind it. She was right. While the herald held their attention, the dimensional tear had continued to grow. Corruption spreading outward like ink in water. I'll handle the manifestation, Rias decided, crimson-black energy intensifying around her. Naruto, focus on sealing the tear. Rain, I'll keep any additional entities from coming through, the fallen angel finished, her 12 wings spreading wide as she positioned herself between the tear and her companions. No further coordination was needed. They moved as a unit, each targeting their assigned task with practiced efficiency. Rias launched a devastating assault against the herald, waves of destruction washing over it, carving away portions of its unstable form. The entity howled, its cry piercing through dimensions, and counterattacked with tendrils of pure corruption that Rias barely dodged. Raynor created a barrier of fallen angel magic, reinforced with what appeared to be Grigori technology embedded in her armor. Where smaller manifestations attempted to emerge from the tear, she struck with precision, viol. Chi energy spears disintegrating them before they could fully form. Naruto approached the tier itself, golden chakra swirling around him as he assessed the best approach. This wasn't like the tiers he had sealed before. This one pulsed with intelligence, the corruption actively resisting as he sent exploratory chakra toward it. This isn't working, he called out, forming a Rasenshuriken that the tear somehow deflected. It's adapting to my techniques. Of course, the herald laughed even as Rias blasted away another portion of its form. We have studied you, Seal Master. Learned your methods, found your weaknesses. Then I'll just have to get creative, Naruto muttered, forming a new hand seal. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Dozens of clones appeared, surrounding the tier from all angles. Each began forming a different variation of sealing technique, some using Uzumaki methods, others incorporating what Naruto had learned from the Sage of Six Paths, still others experimenting with combinations of approaches. The tear pulsed violently, corruption lashing out to dispel clones, but there were too many, attacking from too many angles with too many variations. Slowly, methodically, Naruto's clones began to contain the edges of the tear, golden chakra chains wrapping around its perimeter. Meanwhile, Rias continued her assault on the herald, her power of destruction proving effective against its unstable form. With each blast, more of the entity dissolved, unable to maintain cohesion under her relentless attack. Something's wrong, Rainer called out suddenly, her violet eyes tracking energy patterns invisible to the others. This is too easy. Easy, Rias retorted, dodging another tendril of corruption. I wouldn't call this. No, she's right, Naruto interrupted, his sensory abilities picking up what Rainer had detected. This tear, this herald, they're just distractions. The herald's grotesque approximation of laughter confirmed their suspicion. Clever creatures. Yes, while you focus here, the true breach forms elsewhere. The convergence point awakens. The fragment grows. Horror dawned on all three faces simultaneously. The convergence point, Naruto realized. There must have been a piece of corruption left in the crystal pillar. And these distributed tears have been draining our resources, keeping us divided and distracted, Rias added, her Cetical mind quickly assessing the strategy. While the real threat builds at the nexus of dimensional barriers, Rainer finished grimly. We need to get to the convergence point immediately. Naruto turned to his remaining clones. Finish sealing this tear. I'm heading to the Himalayas. Not alone, Rias stated firmly, moving to his side. I'm coming too, Rainer declared, landing beside them. I've been studying these energy patterns. You'll need my insights. Naruto nodded, accepting their support without argument. We should contact Gabriel. If this is happening at the convergence point, we'll need all three factions represented again. Already done. Rainer surprised them by saying, activating a communication device built into her armor. I've maintained a private channel to heaven since we parted. Contingency planning. Rias raised an eyebrow but didn't comment on this revelation. Instead, she focused on practicalities. I can create a transportation circle to the outpost we used before, but no closer. The convergence point will likely be surrounded by distortion fields. Then we'll fly the rest of the way, Rainer said. Naruto, can you maintain your flight-capable form for an extended period? No problem, he assured her, already shifting into his six-path sage mode, golden chakra crackling around him. As Rias prepared the transportation circle, Naruto spared on. A last glance at the partially sealed tear and the disintegrating herald. Something about its words nagged at him, the reference to prophecy, to cycles continuing. We will meet again, Seal Master. The herald called as it continued to dissolve under his clone's sustained assault. When the veil finally falls, the transportation circle activated, and the boundary region vanished in crimson light. As they traveled between locations, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that they were rushing headlong into something far more complex than a simple corruption breach, something that had been in motion long before his arrival in this world. The Himalayan outpost appeared around them, unchanged from their previous visit except for a layer of fresh snow covering the surrounding landscape. The sun was setting behind the towering peaks, casting long shadows across the pristine white expanse. Gabriel will meet us directly at the convergence point, Rainer reported, checking her communication device. Heaven's forces have detected massive energy fluctuations from the temple. How bad? Naruto asked as they stepped outside into the biting cold. Bad enough that Michael has placed all of heaven on high alert. Rainer replied grimly, whatever's happening there, it's accelerating. Without further discussion, they took to the air, Rias surrounded by her crimson power, Rainer's 12 black wings spread wide. And Naruto in his golden chakra form, truth-seeking orbs hovering behind him. They flew in tight formation through the gathering darkness, the snow-covered mountains passing beneath them in a blur of white and gray. Naruto sensed the disturbance before he saw it, a wrongness in the energy flow of the world, centered on the location of the convergence point. There, Rias pointed ahead, where the air itself seemed to be fracturing, cracks of darkness spreading across the sky like a shattered windshield. As they approached, the full scale of the crisis became apparent. The temple built into the mountainside was now surrounded by a swirling vortex of corruption, the stone itself warping and twisting as if being remolded by unseen hands. The entrance they had before was now a gaping maw of darkness, pulsing with malevolent energy. Gabriel awaited them on a plateau just outside the effect radius, her 12 white wings fully extended, golden armor replacing her usual dress. 6 other angels accompanied her, each armed with weapons of divine light. The situation is worse than we feared, she called as they landed beside her. The corruption has reached the crystal pillar at the heart of the temple. It's using the nexus to amplify its power. How did this happen? Rias demanded, surveying the devastation with alarm. The sealing ritual should have purged all corruption. Not all. Apparently, Rainer interjected, her violet eyes fixed on the temple entrance. A fragment remained, dormant until we departed. I've been tracking its energy signature through the minor tiers. Gabriel's gaze sharpened on the fallen angel. You knew of this. Why didn't you alert heaven immediately? Because I needed to be certain of the pattern before making accusations, Rainer replied. Meeting the angel's gaze without flinching. And because I suspected there might be more to this situation than simple corruption. What do you mean? Naruto asked, sensing deeper implications in her words. Rainer hesitated, then seemed to come to a decision. The energy pattern of these tiers, it's familiar to me beyond our encounter at the convergence point. I've seen records of it in sealed Grigori archives, dating back to before the Great War. Explain, Gabriel demanded, tension evident in her wings' positioning. According to those records, Rainer continued, similar dimensional disturbances occurred millennia ago, shortly after the creation of the 3 factions. Each time, they culminated in a major breach at a nexus point, followed by a sealing ritual performed by representatives of all factions working through a mortal vessel. Are you suggesting this has happened before? Rias asked, her analytical mind quickly processing the implications. That the cycle the Herald mentioned is literal, not metaphorical, Rainer confirmed. I believe Trihex's corruption breaking through the dimensional barriers isn't a one-time crisis. It's a recurring event, happening in cycles spanning thousands of years. And each time, a mortal vessel, an Uzumaki, assists in resealing it, Naruto realized, pieces falling into place. That's why my clan has sealing techniques similar to your dimensional barriers. We've been involved in this cycle before. Gabriel's expression showed growing concern. If this is true, why is there no record of it in Heaven's archives? Such a cyclical threat would surely be documented. Unless someone wanted it forgotten, Rainer suggested. The records I found were deeply buried, accessible only to those of highest rank within the Grigori. I suspect similar information exists in heaven and hell, hidden from all but the most senior leadership. A tremor shook the mountain beneath them, cutting off further discussion. The vortex around the temple intensified, darkness pouring from the entrance like smoke from a chimney. Theories will have to wait, Naruto decided, stepping forward. Right now, we need to stop whatever's happening in there. Agreed, Gabriel nodded, practicality overriding her concerns about Rainer's revelations. The corruption must be contained before it spreads further. We'll need to reach the central chamber, Rias stated, gathering her power. Where the crystal pillar stands. I'll clear a path, Naruto offered, forming a Rasengan in each hand. You 3 focus on preparing Whatif ritual we need to perform once we reach the pillar. 4 representatives, Rainer corrected, indicating the angels Gabriel had brought. We'll need 1 from each faction, plus you as the vessel. Gabriel dispatched her angels to establish a perimeter, keeping a single lieutenant with her as they prepared to enter the corrupted temple. The 5 of them approached the entrance, power gathering around each in their distinctive ways: Gabriel's divine light, Rias's destructive energy, Rainer's fallen magic, and Naruto's golden chakra. "Stay close," Naruto warned as they reached the threshold. "And be ready for anything." They plunged into the darkness, immediately assaulted by chaotic energies that clawed at their protective auras. The interior of the temple had transformed. The once elegant spiral path now twisted in impossible geometries, stone surfaces flowing like liquid where corruption touched them. Naruto led the way, truth-seeking orbs deployed around them as a shield will. His Rasengans cleared corrupted obstacles. The others followed in tight formation, each contributing to their collective defense: Gabriel's light repelling darkness, Rias's destruction eliminating erupted entities that formed in their path, Rainer's fallen magic neutralizing spatial distortions that threatened to separate them. "The corruption is intelligent," Gabriel observed as they fought their way deeper. "It's actively resisting our approach." "More than that," Rainer added, studying the patterns in the flowing darkness. "It's learning from each of our attacks, adapting its defenses. Then we keep changing tactics," Naruto decided, switching from Rasengan variants to sealing techniques, then to wind nature attacks. "Keep it off balance." Their progress was slow but steady, each chamber and corridor requiring new approaches as the corruption evolved countermeasures to their abilities. Throughout their descent, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling of familiarity, not from his previous visit, but something deeper. As if he had fought this battle before in some forgotten lifetime. Finally, they reached the massive doors leading to the central chamber. Unlike before, these were sealed not by the original 3-faction lock but by a writhing mass of corruption that pulsed with malevolent awareness. "This won't respond to the traditional opening ritual," Gabriel stated, assessing the transformed doors. "Then we make our own entrance," Rias suggested, crimson energy gathering in concentrated form between her hands. "Wait," Rainer cautioned, studying the corruption with narrowed eyes. "It's connected directly to what's inside. A brute force approach might accelerate whatever process is underway." Naruto stepped forward, extending his senses toward the corrupted barrier. "It's like a reverse seal," he observed. "Instead of keeping something in, it's keeping us out while letting corruption flow both ways." "Can you counter it?" Gabriel asked. "I think so," Naruto nodded, already forming unique hand seals. "But I'll need help from all of you. Each faction's energy, perfectly balanced." Understanding immediately, the 3 women and Gabriel's angel lieutenant positioned themselves around Naruto, each channeling their distinctive power toward him. As before, he served as the vessel, the conduit through which their different energies could harmonize. 6 paths sealing reversal, he intoned. Golden chakra chains extending from his palms to wrap around the corrupted barrier. Where the chains touched, infused with the balanced power of all 3 factions, the corruption hissed and recoiled. Slowly, methodically, Naruto unwound the dark energy, revealing the original doors beneath. With a final surge of combined power, the corruption dispersed, leaving the way clear. The doors, sensing the presence of representatives from all 3 factions, swung open of their own accord. What awaited them inside stole the breath from their lungs. The once magnificent central chamber had been transformed into a nightmare landscape. The crystal pillar at its center now pulsed with darkness, corruption having consumed more than half its length. Around it, reality itself had begun to fold and fracture, revealing glimpses of other dimensions, including, Naruto realized with horror, his own world. But most disturbing was what hovered before the pillar, a figure composed of swirling corruption that nonetheless maintained a humanoid shape. Unlike the herald they had faced earlier, this entity possessed definition, purpose, identity. As they entered, it turned to face them, features resolving into a face that struck Naruto with impossible recognition. "No way," he breathed, staring at what appeared to be a corrupted mirror image of himself. At last, the entity spoke, its voice an unsettling echo of Naruto's own. "The Seal Master returns to complete the cycle." "What are you?" Naruto demanded, golden chakra flaring around him defensively. The corrupted doppelganger smiled, the expression a twisted parody of Naruto's own grin. "I am you, Seal Master. Or rather, What remains of the last vessel who stood where you now stand? The last Uzumaki to seal the breach. Gabriel stepped forward, light gathering around her hands. Impossible. The last sealing ritual was performed millennia ago. Time flows differently in the space between dimensions, the entity replied. What was millennia for you has been an eternity of half-existence for me. What happened to you? Naruto asked, unable to look away from this corrupted version of himself. What happens to all vessels? Eventually, corruption seeps through. The seal demands sacrifice. Part of the vessel remains behind, bound to the barriers. Horror dawned on Naruto as he understood the implication. You're saying that each time this ritual is performed, part of the seal master's essence is consumed by the barriers. Precisely. How else could mortal work contain immortal power? Blood calls to blood, Uzumaki to Uzumaki. The cycle continues. Rainer's earlier revelations now made terrible sense. The recurring cycle, the necessary involvement of Uzumaki seal masters, the hidden records. This wasn't just about sealing dimensional tiers, it was a system designed to perpetuate itself through sacrifice. That's why I was drawn to the shrine in my world, Naruto realized. Not coincidence, blood calling to blood. And why the barriers began failing now, Rias added, her analytical mind connecting the dots. The last vessel's essence has degraded over time, corrupted by proximity to Trihex's influence. The entity laughed, the sound rippling through multiple dimensions. Clever creatures. Yes, I have served my purpose, contained the corruption as long as possible. Now it is time for renewal. For a fresh vessel. Gabriel's expression hardened with righteous anger. You orchestrated this crisis. The tears, the distractions, all to lure Naruto here. Of course. The cycle must continue. The barriers must be maintained. At the cost of trapping part of Naruto's essence for eternity. Rias demanded, the power of destruction gathering around her hands. Unacceptable. There has to be another way, Naruto insisted, looking between his companions and his corrupted counterpart. A way to strengthen the barriers without sacrifice. The entity tilted its head, studying Naruto with unsettling familiarity. I once thought as you do. All vessels do. But in the end, sacrifice is inevitable. The only question is how much of yourself remains behind. The crystal pillar pulsed violently. Corruption spreading further up its length. The dimensional fractures around the chamber widened, revealing more glimpses of other worlds, including, Naruto noticed with growing alarm. Konoha's Hokage Mountain. We're running out of time, Rainer warned, violet energy crackling around her hands. The barriers are collapsing across multiple dimensions. If we don't act, both our worlds will be consumed by corruption, Gabriel added, her wings flaring with divine power. Naruto found himself at a crossroads, faced with an impossible choice, sacrifice part of himself to the cycle. Potentially becoming what the entity before him had become, or risk the destruction of multiple worlds, including his own. The entity seemed to sense his internal conflict, a twisted smile spreading across its corrupted features. There is no escape from the cycle, Seal Master. Only acceptance. Something in those words triggered Naruto's defiance, the same stubborn determinant. Ion that had defined his life through every challenge. You're wrong, he stated firmly, chakra intensifying around him. There's always another way. That's what I've learned through every impossible situation I've faced. He turned to his companions, mind racing through possibilities. The original ritual required representatives from all three factions channeling power through a mortal vessel. What if instead of the vessel absorbing the corruption, we distribute the load? Gabriel frowned. What are you suggesting? A new kind of seal, Naruto explained, the concept forming as he spoke. One that draws power from all three factions continuously, not just during the ritual. A living connection rather than a static barrier. A network, Rias caught on quickly, her tactical mind grasping the implications. With anchor points in each realm, maintained by representatives of each faction. Precisely, Naruto nodded. No single being bears the full burden. The connection is distributed, sustainable. The corrupted entity laughed, though there was a note of uncertainty in the sound. Impossible. The corruption would spread through your network, infecting all connected realms. Not if the connection points are properly sealed, Rainer countered, violet eyes alight with sudden understanding. The Grigori have techniques for filtering energy between dimensions. Combined with Heaven's purification methods and devil containment spells. It could work, Gabriel agreed, hope kindling in her expression. A tri-faction approach, with each contributing our unique strengths. The entity's form flickered, corruption swirling more violently around it as the crystal pillar pulsed with increasing intensity. You cannot break the cycle. The old ways demand sacrifice. The old ways got us here, Naruto retorted, stepping forward. Time for something new. Without further hesitation, he formed a complex sequence of hand seals, drawing on everything he had learned about sealing techniques from his Uzumaki heritage, the Sage of Six Paths, and his recent experiences with the supernatural world's dimensional barriers. I'll need all of you, he called to his companions. Gabriel, Rias, Rainer, position yourselves at the points of a triangle around the pillar. Your lieutenant, he nodded to the angel who had accompanied them, should stand opposite me, completing the circuit. The four supernatural beings moved into position, each intuitively understanding their role in this improvised ritual. The corrupted entity watched, its form fluctuating between solid and vaporous as if uncertain of its continued existence. You cannot undo what has been established since the beginning of the three factions, it warned, though its voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. Watch me, Naruto challenged, entering his complete six-path sage mode, golden chakra blazing around him like a second sun. With the others in position, he began the ritual, golden chai. NS of pure chakra extending from him to each of the four supernatural beings, creating a circuit of power that surrounded the crystal pillar. Where the chains connected to each participant, their unique UE energies flowed into the network, Gabriel's divine light, Rias's controlled destruction, Rainer's balanced twilight power, and the supporting angel's celestial energy. Six-path sealing technique, dimensional network. The chamber filled with blinding light as the combined powers surged through Naruto's chakra framework, reshaping the very structure of the dimensional barriers. The corrupted entity howled, its form beginning to disintegrate as the new seal took effect. No, the cycle cannot be broken. I cannot be undone. You're not being undone, Naruto corrected, maintaining the flow of energy with intense concentration. You're being released, your sacrifice honored, but not perpetuated. The crystal pillar's corruption began to recede, pushed back by the network of balanced energies now flowing through it. As the darkness retreated, the entity's form became increasingly transparent, fragments of its essence absorbing into the new seal structure, not as corruption but as purified energy. I remember now, the entity's voice changed, losing its distorted quality, becoming more human. I was Uzumaki Ashina, I came to seal the breach, to save both worlds, and you did, Naruto assured it, feeling a strange kinship with this ancient ancestor. Your sacrifice protected countless lives. But now it's time for a new approach. The entity, Ashina, regarded Naruto with eyes that gradually cleared of corruption, revealing a familiar Uzumaki blue. Perhaps it is. The cycle has continued long enough. With those words, the last of the corruption dispersed from Ashina's form, revealing briefly the image of a red-haired man with familiar facial features before his essence dissolved completely, absorbed into the newly forming network. The crystal pillar now glowed with clean light, pulsing in rhythm with the energies flowing through the seal network. The dimensional fractures around the chamber began to close, reality stabilizing as the new barriers took effect. It's working, Gabriel called, her voice strained but triumphant. The corruption is receding across all realms. The network is establishing anchor points, Rainer confirmed, her violet eyes tracking energy flows invisible to the others. I can feel connections forming in Grigori territory. The same in the underworld, Rias added. The tiers are sealing themselves as the network extends. Naruto maintained the central connection, serving not as a sacrifice but as the temporary conduit through which the initial network could form. Unlike the previous ritual, this one was designed to become self-sustaining once established, drawing power from all three factions in constant, balanced measure. As the ritual reached its completion, Naruto felt the burden lifting, the net work becoming independent of his direct control. The golden chains connecting him to the others gradually transformed, becoming threads of light that extended outward through the dimensional fabric, establishing permanent connections. With a final pulse of combined energy, the ritual completed. The chamber returned to its original state, the crystal pillar now glowing with a soft, steady light. Chi contained hints of all their powers, gold, white, crimson, and violet swirling in harmonious balance. Naruto released his six paths mode, dropping to one knee in exhaustion but grinning with triumph. We did it. The others approached, likewise drained but victorious. Gabriel reached him first, helping him to his feet with gentle strength. You've accomplished what generations of our kind thought impossible, she said softly. Changed the very foundation of how our worlds interact. Not me, Naruto corrected, looking at each of them in turn. Us. This only worked because we were willing to try something new together. Rias nodded, understanding the significance of what they had achieved. The network will require maintenance, representatives from each faction working in concert regularly. A permanent alliance, Rainer observed, a hint of her old smirk returning though without its usual edge. How inconvenient for those who prefer the old divisions. But necessary, Gabriel stated firmly. This crisis has shown us the cost of separation. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Naruto cast one last glance at the crystal pillar, now a nexus for their new network rather than a prison for sacrificed essence. He silently thanked Ashina, the ancestor he had never known existed until today, for his sacrifice and for finding peace at last. The cycle was broken. A new era had begun. The aftermath of their dimensional restructuring sent ripples throughout the supernatural world. Representatives from all three factions gathered at neutral sites to establish formal protocols for maintaining the network. While scholars studied the newly accessible historical records that had been hidden for millennia. Naruto remained in the supernatural world for several weeks, assisting with the transition and explaining the new system to key figures from each faction. Throughout this period, he worked closely with Gabriel, Rias, and Rainer, their shared experience forging bonds that transcended traditional boundaries. Eventually, however, the time came for him to return to Konoha, at least temporarily. He stood at the Uzumaki Shrine, now rebuilt and reinforced as the primary connection point between worlds. The three women who had become so important to him gathered to see him off. The dimensional passages are fully stabilized, Gabriel reported, her serene beauty complimented by the genuine warmth in her eyes when she looked at Naruto. You can travel between our worlds with minimal energy expenditure now. The network anchors are functioning perfectly, Rias added, standing closer to Naruto than strictly necessary for their conversation. Regular maintenance rotations have been established among all three factions. And I've been appointed the Grigori's official liaison to your world, Rainer smirked. Violet eyes gleaming with their usual calculation but also with something more genuine. Apparently, my unique perspective and existing relationship with the dimensional hero make me ideally suited. Naruto laughed, shaking his head at their transparent attempts to ensure continued contact. So what you're all saying is, I won't be getting rid of any of you anytime soon. Precisely, Gabriel confirmed with a small smile. The balance requires regular interaction between all involved parties. Very regular, Rias emphasized, her hand brushing against his with deliberate casualness. Constant, one might say, Rainer added, not to be outdone. Looking between the three of them, the radiant angel, the proud devil princess, and the enigmatic fallen angel, Naruto felt a surge of affection that transcended conventional definitions. Each had become important to him in different ways, their shared trials creating connections that defied the traditional boundaries of their worlds. I wouldn't have it any other way, he said sincerely. Though explaining this arrangement to the Hokage is going to be interesting. Speaking of arrangements, Gabriel began. Unusual hesitation in her voice. We three have discussed certain possibilities. Possibilities, Naruto echoed, sensing something significant approaching. The new network creates unprecedented opportunities for cooperation between our factions, Rias explained, her diplomatic tone belied by the intensity in her blue-green eyes. Including new types of alliances. Personal alliances, Rainer clarified bluntly. Between representatives of different realms. Understanding dawned slowly, then all at once. Naruto looked between them, seeing the same emotion reflected in three very different expressions. Are you suggesting a formal connection? Gabriel confirmed. Recognized by all three factions. With all three of us, Rias added, a slight blush coloring her cheeks despite her usual composure. Simultaneously, Rainer finished with characteristic directness. Unless that's too much for the great hero to handle. Naruto stared at them, momentarily speechless, a rare condition for Konoha's most unpredictable ninja. Then, gradually, a smile spread across his face. You know, he said finally, when Kakashi warned me that investigating strange energy might lead to complications. I don't think this is what he had in mind. Is that a yes? Rias pressed, impatience breaking through her diplomatic facade. Naruto looked at each of them in turn, Gabriel with her serene strength, Rias with her passionate intelligence, Rainer with her complex, challenging spirit. Three beings who had once been divided by ancient conflicts, now united through their connection to him and to each other. Yes, he answered simply. To all of you. What followed was a moment of connection that transcended words. Gabriel's gentle kiss on his forehead, Rias's more passionate embrace, Rainer's characteristically bold claiming of his lips. Each expressed her unique nature, yet all shared the same fundamental emotion. As they prepared for his temporary departure, finalizing plans for continued cross-dimensional cooperation, Naruto couldn't help but reflect on the strange journey that had brought him here, from a curious investigation at an ancient shrine to becoming the linchpin of a new supernatural alliance in the heart of an unprecedented personal connection. I'll be back soon, he promised as he activated the dimensional passage. Konoha needs to know what's happened, and I have a feeling Kakashi is going to want a very detailed report. Don't take too long, Rainer advised with a meaningful look. Some of us aren't known for our patience. We'll await your return, Gabriel assured him more gently. The network will guide you back to us. To all of us, Rias emphasized, the subtle competition between them now tempered by their shared understanding. Light swirl D around Naruto as the passage activated, transporting him back to his own world. As the supernatural realm faded from view, he carried with him not just memories and knowledge, but connections that old forever alter the course of multiple dimensions. The cycle of sacrifice had ended. A new cycle of cooperation, balance, and unexpected love had begun. Kakashi listened to Naruto's report with his usual outward calm, though the widening of his visible eye at certain points betrayed his astonishment. So, he summarized when Naruto finally finished, you've established a permanent dimension. Network connecting our world to a realm of supernatural beings, broken an ancient cycle of sacrifice that had perpetuated for millennia, and formed personal alliances with representatives from all three supernatural factions. That about covers it, Naruto confirmed, rubbing the back of his head somewhat sheepishly. And these personal alliances. Kakashi's eye curved in what Naruto recognized as his teasing smile. They extend beyond the merely diplomatic, I take it. Yeah, Naruto admitted, a slight blush coloring his cheeks. It's complicated, but also not. They're different from each other, but they all matter to me. Kakashi nodded thoughtfully. Well, it's hardly the strangest outcome of a mission in Konoha's history. Though it might set a new standard for diplomatic relations. So you're okay with this arrangement? With me traveling between worlds? As Hokage in waiting, I should probably have concerns about our strongest shinobi dividing his time between dimensions, Kakashi mused. But as your former sensei. His expression softened slightly. I'm happy you've found connections that bring you joy, Naruto. You've earned that much and more. Relief washed over Naruto. Kakashi's approval meant more to him than he often admitted. Thanks. And I won't neglect my responsibilities here. Konoha is still my home. With some significant expansions to your definition of home. Kakashi noted with amusement. I look forward to meeting these three remarkable women someday. They must be extraordinary to have captured your heart simultaneously. They are, Naruto confirmed. A smile spreading across his face as he thought of them. Each in her own way. As he left the Hokage Tower, stepping into the familiar bustle of Konoha's streets, Naruto felt the seal mark on his palm pulse gently, a reminder of the connection that now linked multiple worlds and the extraordinary beings waiting for his return. The sun was setting over the Hokage monument, painting the stone faces in shades of gold and crimson that reminded him of angelic light, devil power, and the twilight energy of fallen angels. Different worlds, different powers, yet all connected now through the network they had created together. Naruto smiled, touching the seal mark with quiet appreciation. What had begun as a simple investigation had led to the adventure of a lifetime, and connections that would last for many lifetimes to come. "I'll be back soon," he promised softly, his words carried on the evening breeze toward the dimensional passage waiting at the rebuilt Uzumaki shrine. In 3 different realms, 3 extraordinary women sensed his promise through the network that bound them all together. And across the boundaries of worlds, a new kind of harmony began to take root, not the forced separation of the old barriers, but the willing connection of beings who had chosen to overcome ancient divisions for something more precious: unity, balance, love. The divine convergence had only just begun. Chapter 3 End.